All right, what's going on? Drive time on a Tuesday afternoon. It's about 15 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. It is another lovely fall day outside, about 68 degrees, clear and sunny here in downtown Salt Lake City, Utah. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. That young man is named Porter Larson. He produces this radio program, and we are jam-packed. As you would expect this time of year, a little bit of everything going on. The pro football weekend came to an end last night with a Monday Night Football doubleheader. One really entertaining game, and then one game that, was close in the end, but you kind of feel bad for those two quarterbacks, Justin Herbert as well as Kyler Murray. But Lamar Jackson is insanely entertaining. 20 straight touchdown passes without a pick on Monday Night Football. That's a record. The Bucs came back late, made it interesting. They essentially wasted too much time at the end. But unfortunately, they've lost Chris Godwin for the year, and Mike Evans left that game as well. So pro football weekend behind us. Look at a little Thursday Night Football. Don't forget, we are your home of the NFL here in this market. So coming up on Thursday night, we will start. I cannot believe it, but week 8 of pro football is already here, and it's the Vikings and the Rams from SoFi. So Vikings, really good team. Rams getting better. By the way, they did announce today that they've opened up that 21-day practice window for Puka Nacua, as it looks like he is getting closer and closer to making his return for the Rams. So a little pro football in the show. How about the NBA? It is back. Are you excited? Going to talk about it today a little bit. Obviously, the Jazz get rolling tomorrow. Knicks Celtics will be the early game on Turner, and then Timberwolves Lakers will be the later game from Crypto. They're still calling it Crypto.com Arena. How many crypto bros do you know that are like pissed that they ever did that? But I guess that's still the deal. I always have this conversation this time of year. Are we a Jazz market or are we an NBA market? Most people still in football mode. You understand that. But the NBA is back tonight, and you should watch Turner this year for no other reason that this is the last year Charles Barkley and Inside the NBA on TNT will be a part of our lives. Now, they could come back with some sort of different version, but Chuck is usually unfiltered. This year, he might get fired for just going crazy on air. So, cannot wait for that as the NBA is back. The Jazz are going to take on the Grizzlies coming up tomorrow. I was on my guy JP Chunga's podcast today, Roundball Roundup, on the Utah Jazz Podcast Network, previewing the season ahead. Had my fantasy basketball draft last night. Number 1 pick, Victor Wembanyama, on team. Starks got ejected. No big deal. So pumped for that. Basketball is back. Of course, we will get to the college football storylines that have dominated the local airwaves on both radio and television over the past, couple of months. And Utah football, the latest with the change offensive coordinator. We heard a lot of sound after practice yesterday. We're going to bring some of that back around, should time allow, from some players and coaches talking about Mike Bajaki and what he is tasked to do, an unenviable position, in my opinion. As he said, look, the system is installed. It is what it is. And make some wrinkles here or there. How much of a difference can he make? It's hard to know. But Utah heads to Houston as a slight favorite on the road. BYU heads to Orlando, the happiest place on earth, as a slight favorite over UCF. They're a 2-point favorite. BYU looking to extend that unbeaten start to the season. So, a lot going on. Hockey club in action tonight against Ottawa. RSL playoff match coming up a week from tonight against Minnesota. And a little bit of everything kind of colliding right now, which makes it a lot of fun. Our first guest will be Scott Mitchell, former Utah quarterback. Football conversation with Stevenson Sylvester. Amy Donaldson will stop by as well. She just released her new RSL podcast, The Making of a Moment. And then Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, live in studio, the mayor of Sac Lake City. How does he feel about the current state of the Utes? Going to bring them in studio today. 2 Pelotons, 2 Emmys. Dave Fox will join us. I was on TV with Dave last night at 10:35 KMYU. We call it 5 Questions with Spence. Scott Mitchell, Stevenson Sylvester, Amy Donaldson, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, Dave Fox, me, Spence Checketts, all of you, the great listeners, on a Tuesday. And that guy, Porter Larson. There are a few things going on today. Did I miss anything? Every day I try to come into the show and talk about everything we have going on the show and in the market. The Royals, they're still playing and winning.
I think you got most of it.
World Series on Friday. I didn't even talk playoff baseball.
You're always going to miss something.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, World Series is this week. We've got hockey. We've got soccer. We've got playoff soccer, I should mention. We've got NBA tip-off this week. We've got both pro and college football to discuss. So, I mean, we could, if you wanted to, Spence, probably do radio until the wee hours of the night, but we'll go until 5 or 6 and say goodnight from there.
We'll go until 6.
6.
Yeah, we'll go
live,
until 6
no exceptions.
Yeah, every single day, as you know. So a lot going on. Thanks for making us a part of your day. You have a lot of options to listen, and we're very grateful that you choose us on a Tuesday. Scott Mitchell will be our first guest, but before we get to Scott, courtesy of our good friends at Standard Restaurant Supply, your tailgate headquarters. Check them out online at standardrestaurantsupply.com or stop by their centralized Salt Lake City location on a Tuesday. It's time now for your opening tip. So the big storyline, of course, here locally when it comes to the college football world, well, a couple of them. Certainly one is about BYU and this incredible, magical season they've had so far, and will it continue coming up this weekend in Orlando? We'll talk some BYU football at some point, but of course up this way, it's about where we continue to find ourselves with the Utah football program after all of these insane preseason projections, where we sit here today. And during crosstalk earlier with Sean O'Connell, Sean made a comment that just hit me right across the face. We were talking about it, and you guys have heard we had Bill on yesterday. Going to have Sly on coming up in just a little bit. I'm wondering what people who cover Utah football, who care about Utah football, even you as a fan, if you're listening to the program, you're a Ute fan, I want you to think about this. What are you willing to continue to say about Utah football today as far as what is still on the table? Because you can get creative and create a path for something other than some throwaway game. You can do that. Are you willing to? And Sean said no. At this point, he said they're probably going to go to a bowl game. And then he paused and said, if they qualify for one. And I can't believe that's on the table based off of what we thought this team would be during the preseason, because they do have a path if you want to get creative when it comes to head-to-head against BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State, okay? So by all accounts and purposes, you can hate it all you want. BYU, Colorado, Iowa State are three of probably the four best teams in the Big 12, right? And, you know, it's tough for me to stretch my imagination to have all of these teams get stung as many times as they need to get stung, even if Utah beats all three of them. That's the problem. I still am holding out confidence in a coaching staff that I've seen turn teams around several times, that what we've seen so far is not close to what the team can be. I am still in that space. You might call me delusional or crazy, and I might not say you're wrong. That's just in the space. That's the space that I continue to be in, at least as of today. Now, as we talked about yesterday, if they go down to Houston, Mike Bajaki and the new play caller, if they go down to Houston, by all accounts and purposes, one of, if not the worst teams in the entire Big 12, even though they just beat TCU. If they go down to Houston and it looks the same, and they can't move the ball, and Isaac is not making the right reads, and they're not converting on third down, but they're sustaining some drives here or there, but they can't score touchdowns, and they settle for field goals. If we are sitting here Monday of next week, and it's the same thing, then I think it's fair to have a conversation about what other changes need to go down. But until something like that happens, and I'm not saying it's been good, I'm not that delusional, until I see another scenario where it's just completely flat, I will continue to stay in the space based off the talent I believe that's on the roster and the coaching staff that has earned the benefit of the doubt to figure this thing out. I'm going to stay in the space that it can and potentially will look much different. At ESPN700sports.com. That's where you go to find it. And he essentially said, look, like, the system's the system. Mike is not coming to Utah from Northwestern yesterday. He's not coming to Utah from Tennessee a week ago. He's not coming in to install a new system, nor would you do that midseason when you're dealing with 18 to 24, 25-year-olds. So it makes sense to elevate from within. How much simply will a new voice reverberate? I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that's a cliche that means nothing. And Mike doesn't have anything at his disposal that Andy didn't have. And Andy's pedigree, all due respect, is much more impressive than anything Mike has ever done. I'm not meaning that as a knock. I mean, if Andy can't figure it out, how confident are you that Mike can? And that's not a knock on him. I'm just not sure that this is the type of change that will lead to, wholesale changes. My confidence isn't necessarily because of the change. That's the big story. I continue to lean into the talent that I believe they have when healthy, and that includes Isaac. And we've seen moments from Isaac. We haven't seen anything extended, and there are a myriad of reasons for that, and maybe the play calling is one of them, and maybe Mike has some sort of quarterback idea that Andy doesn't. That's hard for me to believe, though. The positive space I continue to stay on is it's the main reason why we all thought they were going to be awesome all year. There is a lot of talent on this roster. These are coaches that have turned seasons around before. And while the schedule is a little bit more difficult than we anticipated, they're not world beaters in front of them. I think there are questions about BYU that I still want answered. They're awesome, and they deserve their flowers, and they're undefeated, and that's all that matters. No matter how you get the win, you survive in advance, and there's an emphatic period, full stop at the end of that statement. I'm not implying that they haven't answered questions. I'm just saying there are some data points available where they clearly have been fortuitous on a number of occasions. Now, to win championships, luck is part of the equation every single time, whether it's luck with your own health, luck that maybe the other team is suffering from injuries, whatever it is, luck is part of the thing. So I don't bring it up as a knock. I just bring it up as if there's a game that is even with the luck factor, if there's a game where balls don't bounce BYU's way every single time, they're winning the turnover battle every week. That can't happen all year. Maybe it does, and if it does, Kalani gets all the awards. In a game where luck is not part of the equation, where there aren't crazy bounces, turnovers, 138-yard punt returns for touchdowns, and it's simply old school head-to-head football, what does that look like against a really good team? I still think that's a fair question to ask about BYU. And Colorado has answered a lot of questions as well, but I do feel like that trip to Boulder is not insurmountable. Utah and Iowa State are very similar. And then on the road to end the season at UCF, they've lost 3 straight games. Like, yes, this is not as easy as we thought. And BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State, by all accounts, are 3 of the 4 best teams in the Big 12. But I don't view this the rest of the way as something that's completely impossible. I know I sound crazy based off the data that we have. By every metric, this is a bottom 5 offense in the Big 12 with every metric outside of rushing, where I think they're 9th. Third down, first down, red zone, passing, like protecting the quarterback. Ultimately, this is not an offense right now that scored very high, right? So I get the skepticism. The defense has been good, not dominant in some areas. They need to get healthy too. I have not jumped off the ship as of yet, I guess is what I'm saying. And talking to Sean earlier, when he said the most likely scenario is they're going to play in a meaningless bowl game, and then paused and said, if they qualify for one, just hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, I can't believe that we're here talking about Utah football this way. But like I said, unless they go to Houston and it looks exactly the same and they cannot move the football and Isaac looks confused and the play calling is befuddling, if that happens, I think we have a different conversation next week about a quarterback change, if you need one, what's going on above the offensive coordinator's pay grade. But as of now, I still remain in the space where I think there's some hope for something special left for Utah football. I just don't know what it is. All right. I want to tell you about my friends at Clearwater Distilling. Clearwater Distilling is the only distillery in Utah County open on Sundays. They've got great spirits, a tasting room, and the nicest crew around. To try their limited release Wednesday whiskey batch, number 2, a mix of their bourbon and rye whiskeys. Try the Scandalous, the Renee, or their vodka, which is now in most state liquor stores. The football season is kicked off, and Clearwater is the official spirits provider for our VIP ESPN tailgate that we have at every home game. Do yourself a favor, check out the tailgate, and schedule a tour and tasting in their Victorian tasting room. It makes a great date night or fun activity anytime. Authentic vintage, prohibition, prescriptions, and decor. Try the Scandalous. No sugar, no additives, great tasting, grown-up version of cinnamon whiskey. They have ultra premium spirits, mini with a unique twist. Try the Renee, the Armagnac, the Josephine, or the Lorenz. You can buy their spirits in state liquor stores online or take a trip to their beautiful distillery. Grab some booze, some local cigars, and immerse yourself in the Clearwater Distilling culture. More information can be found at clearwaterdistilling.com. They're located at 564 West, 700 South in Pleasant Grove. Scott Mitchell is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700. The best to ever do it at the University of Utah. Former Ute and NFL player Scott Mitchell on a Tuesday. Scott, happy Tuesday, man. How we doing?
Not bad. I'm working through the week here. Some interesting developments up on the hill there, but it's going to be a new look.
It is, and you're the guy for this. So we heard from Mike Bajakian yesterday during media availability for the first time, Scott, and it's not surprising he said this, but he said, look, the system is in place. Like, the system is the system, and there are going to be minor tweaks here or there, but this is not an outside hire. This is an OC coming from Cal or something. This is somebody who's been in-house and came here to work for Andy. So what's reasonable to expect, Scott, in your experience from this new play caller?
Yeah, with not having a lot of time to implement what you do. I mean, if you're a coach, you kind of have your ideas, you have your philosophy. He's been around a lot of places. He's been exposed to a lot of different offensive philosophies and stuff. And the reality is they're all not really that dissimilar. It's just kind of how you call things, and the verbiage of things is different, but the concepts of offense are relatively the same. And so I think he's got a pretty good handle on what Utah does, and he's smart, and it sounds like he's smart enough to realize, you're not going to change a whole lot here as far as, the system. It may be some of the plays in the system. Maybe he might see that, look, the tight ends haven't been very involved in this. Dorian Singer, Money Park, some of these really good receivers, have been limited in what they're doing. From the passing game, might sit down with Isaac Wilson and say, look, let's really be honest here, and let's talk about what you really like and you're really comfortable with, because we got to get you going. We got to get you confident. We got to get you out there. So maybe it's kind of when and what kind of calls and who they go to, and maybe some personnel groups change, but the basic core of the offense, they'd be extremely foolish to just change all that, because then no one's going to know what they're doing.
Probably buried the lead. I should just ask you your reaction when you heard Coach Ludd stepped away, and your reaction to kind of how this played out over the course of about 48 hours.
Well, I don't think it's something that's been short. It certainly felt like something was brewing for some time, and why that is, I don't know whether it was that Cam Rising hadn't come back. I mean, if you look at the very beginning of the season, and Cam Rising plays half a game, looks great, throws 5 touchdown passes. Next game against Baylor, they just come out. They're just really on the same page, and they're clicking. And then Cam gets injured, and then it didn't look good after that. And I think this season would be completely different if that wasn't the case and Cam was available. But it's not that way. And for me, my feeling, just personal feeling about it, and to answer your question about what's my feeling about it, it's never fun. Like, I've been through this as a player. I had a coach in the NFL just quit. Bruce Kozlik quit after the 3rd game of the year when I was with the Cincinnati Bengals my first year there, and that was horrible. Because there's so much time that goes into the preparation of things that to have someone quit, it's just really hard to kind of pull everything together. And on top of it, you develop a relationship with people. You spend a lot of time with them. You spend a lot of time sitting in meetings, and you have practices, and you're in games, and you go to a hotel every weekend, and you have meetings in that hotel while you're waiting for the games, and as you're preparing for things, and you spend a lot of time, and you develop these relationships, and when it ends, it feels somewhat like a death. It's not a pleasant thing, no matter what. Now, there may be some guys right now that are like tickled pink because there's no coach that everyone loves them, and there may be guys that go, okay, maybe I'll get a shot to be more involved in things now. I don't know, but there's always that side of it too. And regardless, it's just not a good situation. It's a bad look, and it's just a bad thing to be a part of.
So from a quarterback's perspective, let's hone in now on Isaac. And Isaac was interviewed yesterday after practice, and I always forget how young he is until I see his face, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he is a child. And he almost looked emotional when talking about Andy. He said, I came here to play for Andy Ludwig. And then he said the things you're supposed to say about full faith and buying in and such. But 18 years old and, a month and a half into his first college football season, he's already into his second offensive coordinator. What do you hope to see in response from Isaac, and help us understand maybe what's going through his head right now?
Well, it's hard. It's hard. I imagine it'd be really hard for Isaac because he is so young, and that maturity level to deal with something this, grand and dramatic, and that's hard, to deal with, and you do. I mean, I think of my coaches when I was at Utah, and I loved the system we were in, and I couldn't imagine being in anything other than that system, and it was awesome, and to have that kind of be ripped apart, that would be a little bit earth shattering. And I think there's maybe some recruiting that needs to go on with the new coordinator and maybe Coach Whittingham about keeping Isaac happy and confident, because the thing that has to happen is Isaac Wilson's got to get comfortable, and he's got to get confident, and he's got to get productive in what's happening with whatever is going on in their offense up there. That just has to happen, because him touching the ball as much as he does in a game, he has such an impact on what's going to happen in a game. You've got to get that guy really comfortable and really, really confident. And I've said this before, and I really believe it. There needs to be a discussion, and you don't need all of the plays in the playbook. Everyone says, is the full playbook available to this player? And it's like, I don't think that's a really responsible statement. It should be, are the plays available that Isaac's really confident in running and executing available? Is that available? And what is that? And it might be hard for an 18-year-old kid to say, yeah, this is what I really like, because, having a mature, because he may just say, well, I like everything. I don't care. You just call it. I'll just run it kind of thing. But you really don't like everything. And so there just has to be that kind of conversation going back and forth about, okay, what do you really like? What can you really do here? And Mike Bajakian is a guy that, he's been around a lot of places, and so he should have, and he's been the quarterback coach, so there is that relationship there. He should have a pulse at least on the players and what they can do and what they can work with, and maybe he's had a perspective on why this hasn't worked, and maybe he has a good solution. I don't know anything about him, but I would hope that he has an ability to at least put them in a position to be more productive than they've been. I mean, that shouldn't be too hard because they've been terrible.
Sure. So let's dig in there. And your last part is the best point. I mean, there's nowhere to go but up, because if it gets worse, then other questions need to be asked that I don't think people are ready for. But so let me follow up, though, about what you just said concerning Mike Bajakian, because, look, Andy Ludwig's resume is far superior to Mike's. I'm not bringing that up as a knock. Northwestern offense's final 3 seasons, their rank in total offense, 120th, 123rd, and 124th in yards per play. I have a hard time understanding, like Mike says yesterday, the system is the system. I have a hard time understanding what Mike can figure out that Andy Ludwig couldn't. Can you help me understand that? Or is it simply just a new voice? Oftentimes when I hear they need a new voice, I'm like, that feels like an excuse for players not executing and playing hard. Like, how real is it when it's just a new voice, and what can he figure out that a guy like Andy Ludwig apparently could not?
Well, there's a lot of speculation I'm about ready to say because I don't know that anyone knows that answer. But I'm just talking about the situation. I'm not talking about, does he have better answers than Andy Ludwig? I mean, look at what Andy Ludwig did. I mean, he helped Utah an undefeated season. He's had the longest tenure with Kyle Whittingham. He's been a very successful coordinator, but why did he quit? And did he really quit? Or were there other circumstances that maybe forced him to quit? And that's a long conversation if we're going to get into that one. But so maybe it's not it's just like Kyle's probably going, this is the best I can come up with in a short period of time. I can't go out and find someone to do this. It's a guy that's probably had the most experience calling plays that's on our staff. I mean, if you look at their offensive staff, I mean, the other guy that may, is Jim Harding. I mean, Jim Harding, I don't know if he's ever been a coordinator because it's a different thing. It's like, okay, what play are you going to call here? What play are you going to call here? And if you haven't had experience with it, and I mean, it can be a thing. I mean, for me, when I played, I knew what I liked. Like I was taught that from a very early standpoint. What do you like on first down and why? What do you like on third and short? What do you like in the red zone? What do you like in all these situations? But I understood what I liked and I understood why I liked it. And I don't know that they're there yet with it, but I think they're just trying to do the best with the circumstances that they're in. I don't know if it's going to be better or worse, but I think that's just where it goes. Because to answer your question in simple terms, I don't think he does know more about what's a better option than Andy Ludwig at this point.
I got to follow up, Scott, because it sounds like you're saying a lot without saying the thing. So, I mean, we're in the space. That's the great thing about Sports Talk Radio. It's not a tweet and it's not a column. You can talk about the possibilities. So when you're going in that gray area where you stop short of actually saying the thing, what's the thing you want to say? It's okay to say the thing you want to say.
Well, let's talk about a scenario. Coach Whittingham isn't going to coach forever. They named a coach in waiting. And in Morgan Scalley. And maybe Morgan Scalley goes, Andy's not my guy. Maybe Kyle and again, I hate this, but this is pure speculation. Okay. This is not, I don't know anything. I don't know a thing. Okay. Just so we're clear, but it's just my brain thinking about this. And clearly the offense isn't working. And so maybe it's like, well, let's give someone else a try here. A fresh face, a new face, and see what, then, because maybe this might be Coach Whittingham's last year, and maybe he's the one that's going to take the bullet for this, and so Morgan doesn't have to down the road, and Morgan can kind of go, yeah, I like this guy, I think he's got a chance here, or then Morgan, maybe next year, Morgan, if he's the coach, goes, I know that I'm going to have to look somewhere else to get an offensive coordinator. I mean, it's a scenario, and it's just my opinion. It's not anything I know, but there's a lot of reasons why they make a change or made a change, and that certainly could be one of them. That's all. That's really what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know that that's that far-fetched, and it's also simply fair to say there are contractual ramifications to terminology when somebody is no longer employed, and it's different if you say he stepped down as opposed to he's fired. So, like you, I don't know. I don't know that I've ever seen Coach Witt be as front-facing about potential changes as he was, during media after the game. You could see the frustration. And, I'm not saying that was a decision that was anyone other than Andy's, by his own accord, because that's what we've been told. But we've been told a lot of things that aren't necessarily true. And I do think it's fair to wonder whether or not this was a change that was gently forced upon him as opposed to completely being left in his own hands. That's fine to wonder aloud whether or not that's the case.
Well, it looks good from the outside, like, hey, we weren't getting it done. I'm responsible for that, so I need to step down. And maybe that helps you moving forward, getting a new job as opposed to, well, I was fired. And everything, so maybe the separation and how it's termed and how everyone speaks about it is a way that everyone can go forward and not have it acrimonious and everyone's, spitting on the other guy's face or whatever. Because I don't care what you say. These are never pleasant experiences when this happens. No. The coaching world is, so I don't know if inbred is the right word, but these guys, they end up, this is the second time for Andy being here at Utah, so I'm sure they like to keep it cordial and it's kind of professional, and it is, it's just a business decision. But I think Kyle's been frustrated for some time, and by some time I mean all the way back to last year, and and the frustration could have stemmed from, okay, well, we didn't get Cam back. Well, what about all these other guys? We haven't been able to develop a solid backup situation for the quarterback position in quite some time, and we weren't really prepared for it. And the guys that played were, not ready, or unacceptable solutions or unproductive solutions, and that does fall on Andy. I mean, he was the guy that was specifically designated as the national recruiter of quarterbacks at Utah, and he was the guy that brought these other players in, and they none of them really panned out. I mean, he inherited Cam, but he didn't have a suitable solution last year and this year when something happened to Cam Rising.
Scott, you know as well as anybody, this is about one thing in this space and in this stratosphere. It's about results, period. That's all it's about. That's all it's ever about. And, there really isn't a ton of space in the moment when your offense is essentially ranked near the bottom of every major statistical category for flowers that were given to you in the past. We want to know what's going on now. And it's fair to say, and Andy would be the first to say this, it hasn't been good enough this year. It wasn't good enough last year. And ultimately, I would not blame Coach Witt if this was something that he was pushing for, but they're really good friends, and that brings in a complication. So, of course, he wants to do right by Andy by letting him go out in style and in grace, and there will be a time where we all look back and say, man, Andy Ludwig potentially was the best offensive coordinator of this generation of Utah football. He deserves a lot of credit for that, but the end wasn't good enough. And there are very few coaches that have enough built-in equity to survive a year and a half of anemic performance. That's what it's been. And so he was given space, he was given rope, and he did a great job once upon a time, but it hasn't been good enough. And if this was something Kyle wanted, I don't know that I would have blamed him.
Well, and here's another thing to consider too, is all head coaches have a philosophy, right? And Kyle's is really run first. It's really catered towards the defense. He's realized in recent years he needs to be more explosive on offense, but his core belief is we got to run the football, and you hear it week in and week out. We got to run the football. We got to stop the run, and that never changes with Coach Whittingham. And that might bump up against maybe the philosophy of your offensive coordinator goes, I think we need to throw it more. I think we need to be more explosive, or I think we need to, and he may, so there could be a difference of philosophy with a coordinator too, and that can create some of the less production. It's like, well, the coach wants to run the ball, we're going to run the ball, and the problem, quite frankly, as I've watched every single play, for the last 8 years, teams are defending Utah differently, and with every young quarterback Utah's put in the game, they put more guys in the box than you can block. They're basically daring and forcing Utah to throw the football, and they're putting a lot of pressure both in the run game, where they're making it really hard to run, and they're making it really hard to throw because they're getting pressure on these young quarterbacks, and they're not consistently, they've not been able to handle it. And so that to me really is the crux of the issue, is Utah hasn't been able to handle what these defenses have been doing to it with these young quarterbacks.
I want to go back to something you said earlier when we were discussing the difference potentially that Bajakian can make now that he's in as the play caller. And you made a really good point about it's not necessarily opening up the playbook entirely. It's finding the plays that work for your personnel. We have seen moments from Isaac. We have. Now, it hasn't been consistently good enough from anybody, including the play caller and the quarterback and everybody. I mean, everybody needs to play better. There's no doubt. I'm not singling anybody out. But I do want to point out that we've seen moments from Isaac, the touchdown pass to Monty Parks. He had a bullet to Dorian Singer, a couple of Caleb Lohner finds as well. So when you see Isaac have those moments, what sort of play calling are you seeing in those moments, and what sort of plays can Mike put into place to accentuate the strengths that we all see?
Kind of clear read for him as far as who he's going to, and when you get into maybe some more complicated decision-making processes, For example, the interception against Oklahoma State when he threw the ball down the sideline and the safety intercepted the ball, like that should have never ever happened. And that was, and so he's kind of, but it requires a little bit more of a complex read. Like the guy he was going to was his first read, and he really should have come to his third read, and so he just wasn't completely confident with that. And what it forces you to do is you're kind of tentative when you're in the pocket, because you have to hold the ball longer, and you're trying to read the play and dissect what the defense is doing, and then here comes the pressure, and it's too late. And so when he's had things where a lot of quicker reads, simpler reads, get the ball out quick and early, watch TCU, and they're really good at that, they're one of the better teams in the country throwing the football, and which is why Utah holding them to only 13 points was really good. But they're really clear, really simple, really easy, quick reads, get the ball out fast, and off you go. And so maybe seeing more of that. And it's in Utah's offense, and so much of it, Spence, is on first down. If you can win on first down, and that's where Utah, they're not winning on third down, and a lot of it's because they're not winning on first down. And where you win on first down, you have a productive play. You're coming right out off the field, onto the field, and the quarterback has a good, successful play right out of the chutes. It just brings a lot of confidence. But if you get a lot of people involved early in the game, they get confident, they get more into the game, and so getting the ball to your playmakers quickly, simple reads, succeed faster on first down, then second down becomes very manageable, and third down you really kind of want to limit your third downs. You want to go first down, second down to first down again, or first down to first down, and you want to try to stay out of third down as you're moving the ball down the field as you can. Or if you're in third down, it's third and short. It's third and we can run it or throw it here, or whatever we want to do. Anything's at our disposal, because now the defense goes, well, we don't, but when they know it's third and long, they pin their ears back, or they blitz you, or they do whatever, and they're dictating the terms of everything. And so that, to me, just seems like the simple solution. And I know it's in that offense right now, and it really requires the involvement of the tight ends. It requires the involvement of these receivers moved in different positions than maybe where they are, and it can be really simple to do too. So that would be what I would do with a young quarterback like Isaac. Just give him these simple, quick reads, get the ball out, get the ball in your playmaker's hands, so he's not sitting there holding and trying to figure everything out.
Good stuff, Scott. Appreciate the time. Travel safe to Houston, and we'll chat soon, okay?
You got it. Thank you.
All right. There he is, Scott Mitchell. Coming up next, we'll continue the Utah football conversation with Stevenson Sylvester, but let's bring in Jeff from Farmer and Chemist on a Tuesday. Jeff, happy Tuesday, sir.
Happy Tuesday. Good afternoon.
I appreciate your time. Let's start with how you can help people with sleep issues. That's what you've helped me with the gummies that I take just a piece of a little bit before bedtime, and I wake up feeling refreshed and rested but not hungover. I say it all the time, let's get you off the sleep meds. How can you help people that have some trouble sleeping at night?
Yes, great question. For us, it's all about following the science. And so there is a lot of data showing that different cannabinoids help with sleep, and they also similarly help with anxiety. So CBD combined with another one called CBN is a really good combination for that. And it's, to your point, it's really effective. You don't get hungover. You don't become dependent. It's really, really well tolerated. It does have some drug interactions, and so we always recommend talking to a pharmacist, but it is a really good option to some of the stronger prescription medications that definitely have baggage.
Indeed, and there's also baggage involved with a lot of pain meds, and there are people out there that legitimately suffer from pain and they need relief. How can CBD potentially be a safer option for maybe some pain meds people are on now?
Yeah, so similar to CBN for sleep and anxiety, there's another cannabinoid called CBG. So we combine that with CBD, and it's a very good anti-inflammatory pain medication. And you avoid not only the addictive characteristics that come with opioids, but you'll also avoid the renal or kidney implications that come with NSAIDs like ibuprofen, and also the kidney stuff that comes with acetaminophen or Tylenol. So again, very clean, very effective, does have drug interactions. So it's about finding the right combination and using the right dose and also the right route of administration. And that's why we at Farmer and Chemist, we want to be that resource. We're all pharmacy trained. We would love to have these types of conversations with people.
How can people get a hold of you to learn a little bit more? And also, what's the special offer you have for our listeners?
Yeah. So we have a store in Midvale. So it's in the center of the valley. So it's pretty convenient. It's just off of I-15. You can always go in there and have a conversation. We also do a lot of phone consultations. So if it's not convenient to come in the store, my partner and I, Doug, will get on the phone and talk through these issues with anybody who wants to talk to us. And the nice thing is if you do that and you make a purchase and you mention ESPN 700, we will take 20% off of any purchase.
Jeff, thanks for the time, man. Have a great week, and we'll chat soon, okay?
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right, Jeff from Farmer and Chemist. Time now to give away a $25 gift card to Farmer and Chemist. All right, if you listen to the show consistently, you're a member of the family. We love you. Big group hug. Porter and I had a debate a couple weeks back based off a list that was released ranking the top 10 SNL cast members of all time. You remember that?
That we did.
The list said Bill Hader was the best of all time, which caught me off guard. Although I like Bill, Barry, phenomenal show. Did we agree that it should be Farley at 1?
We did.
Okay. Here's what we'll do. Text in your opinion. Best SNL cast member of all time. Make a good, funny point. Make us laugh on a Tuesday, and we'll give you $25 to Farmer and Chemist. Take a gummy and watch SNL. Huh? Sounds like a good Saturday night to me. 877-353-0700. Best SNL cast member. Make a good point. Convince us. We'll send you to Farmer and Chemist. All right, coming up on the other side, Stevenson Sylvester stops by. More Utah football conversation for the 3 o'clock hour right here on ESPN 700. We're only getting votes for Chris Farley so far. Best SNL cast member of all time. You're not wrong. 877-353-0700. $25 to Farmer and Chemist. We had a debate a few weeks back. Best SNL cast member of all time. The list that I saw online had Bill Hader at 1, which caught me off guard. I thought we'd get a few Will Ferrells and maybe some Eddie Murphys, old school fans.
I thought so too. Maybe some Adam Sandler or so I love Amy Poehler and Tina Fey.
Oh, sure.
In like the late 90s, early 2000s. They were really funny on that show.
Best weekend update host of all time is Norm. Norm McDonald.
Of course.
Don't add me. Stevenson Sylvester on a Tuesday afternoon. Sly, do you have a hot take? Are you an SNL guy at all?
Oh yeah, I love me some Saturday Night Live, man. I'm big on Will Ferrell. There's so many guys that's done it well. I actually have to go into the archives because I'll be like, oh, that guy. But I love how SNL has gotten a lot of people to start. I mean, Kenan Thompson's been on there for so many years. You have to put him kind of up there because he's done so well. It's like it's never been a point where you're like, oh man, we got to stop watching Kenan, right? He's done such an amazing job on SNL, so kudos to him. But I got to go Will Ferrell. Every Will Ferrell clip from SNL is money. And so Will Ferrell's my top for sure.
See, this is what I love about Sly. You can ask him about anything. He's got a breakdown. He's not. See, most people, Sly, would just give me like one name. You had to give me a breakdown, man. I respect that.
There's got to be reason behind every action. There's got to be a why. So for me, that's the reason why is definitely Will Ferrell on that.
Well said. Let's move over to the reason why Utah has a new play caller.
Oh, gosh. How about that? You don't ever want to do this stuff mid-season, but I can't help but say it over and over. It was necessary. I like Andy Ludwig, but likes don't get you wins, right? And so I know Coach Whittingham and Andy Ludwig have a history. They go back a while, but this is not. And for me, I kind of hate this so much. The main thing is like this is just not the last year or the last couple years that I wanted to see of Coach Witt. I thought Coach Witt's last few years should be something magical as this year should have been, and it's not going that way. Ever since COVID, we had Ty Jordan, COVID, Tavion Thomas, all these guys, Rose Bowl failures, all these stuff coming through these last few years. I want more of a monumental ending to Coach Whittingham's tenure, and it's just not going that way.
Do you think that there's anything that could or will happen this year that would affect what Kyle's going to do moving forward? I mean, look, it's not like he has to do anything else. The statue will be built. He is this program.
It better be built.
Yeah, and look, he's this program's Lavelle. I've said it for years, and like, there's nothing else that he has to do. I just wonder if it continues to go in the wrong direction. Do you feel like he would want a different ending to his own story?
Yeah, and you know what? And that may be what it is because he's such a competitor. As far as like competitive edge, I've learned so much of my competitive edge from Coach Whittingham. And so I just know it. I've actually been, downloading some film, looking for the last, ever since the 90s and just seeing young Coach Whittingham's face on there. He's been dialed in since the beginning, man. And so just knowing his competitive edge and the University of Utah literally giving him like, look, whenever you say you're done is when we'll say you're done. You get it. And so I commend Utah for doing that because I think Coach Whittingham has deserved it and he brings the energy to the table. And I think that if he doesn't have that energy, he will stop. He will not continue on. But I definitely have factored in a better ending as far as all this is concerned. So this offseason, I talk to him every year and I'm just like, so when is it going to be? He's like, you know what? I have no idea. I keep getting new energy, newfound, energy to do this each and every year. So I don't know. It could be this year, could be 5 years down the road. I do think it's either this year or next year for me for sure. But he keeps getting re-energized every year.
So ultimately, we heard from Mike Bajakian yesterday for the first time as far as media availability. He's been around the program for a while. I'm going to bring you into a conversation I just had with Scott Mitchell. We talked to Bill about it yesterday as well, and
Mhm.
none of this is a knock on Mike. I don't know him, but he said during the media availability that the system is basically in place. The system is the system.
Right.
You're a player, okay? So I want you to help us understand what a change of voice could potentially mean, or a different set of eyes on the same problem could essentially mean. Because here's why I'm asking, Sly. Like, Mike isn't going to figure something out in Andy's system that Andy couldn't figure out himself, right? So there has to be a net positive to the change. And I don't necessarily understand how he can make Andy's offense better than Andy himself could have made it. So this has to be a new set of eyes, a new voice in the locker room. How real is that? What sort of positive effect is reasonable to expect?
I don't agree with that, Spence.
Oh,
I
good. Good to
think that
hear. Good
there
to
could
hear.
be, I think there could be significant change, in there. The play, I mean, I've said, it's not the play designs that's the issue. It's the timing of the play calling. Like, why are you calling this play at this point in time? It just makes no sense. There was no aggressiveness in our offense. It was just like we're out there playing backyard football, like we're practicing every time. There was just no energy to want to put your opponent behind at any point in any of the last games, even Oklahoma State. I was like, when are we ever on the attack? It just felt like we were just kind of going through the motions, and that is necessarily calling the right plays. I know Andy Ludwig has some big plays dialed up in his system. Just when are you going to call them? And so by somebody changing up when those plays are called, when those plays are dialed up, could mean everything. The terminology could be the same, the formations, the packages, all that could be the same. When those things are going to be called is I think the biggest thing here, and re-energizing the voice. If as you said, if Majeki could come in here and tell these guys, look, our goal is to put our our opponents in the dirt every single play. We're going to be on the attack, and I want to score. Even on a 3rd-and-1 play, I want you guys to think about scoring on this play. That's a different change of voice that this offense, they go and block. There's a different energy when they go and run routes. And so I think that that's what can be injected into this offense and what they need. I mean, Andy Ludwig's done some amazing things over the years, so we're not going to discredit him at all for those things. But right now, it just felt like we've been forcing the ball into Brant Keithy, trying to get him the ball in some kind of capacity with those arc run plays and the bubble screens to him. And it's just taking away from all of the other talent that we have on the field, when the mentality should be, Brant Keithy is here. He's going to get a lot of attention. That means somebody else is going to get ISO coverage. How are we not taking advantage of those type of plays and those type of things? And that's simply what Bajakian could come in here and do.
I am thrilled to hear that you disagree with me, because honestly, I'm just in this space where I'm like, how can this get better? How can this thing improve?
Right.
And, I think we've all been able to see that the play calling at times have been a bit puzzling, but I think you've always been good to help us understand that the coaches can only do so much, and so much of
Right.
this is on the players. And it's not like this is the NFL where Mike can ask Kyle to go trade for a dynamic whatever it is. Like
Mhm.
the personnel is the personnel, Sly, right? So how help us understand how specifically Mike, with the same personnel, could make a bit of a difference that Andy himself could not make.
Man, and you know what? He's had a great perspective, this entire time he's been with the program, right? He's been close to the quarterbacks. He's been watching the offense. He's been able, essentially, I would be able to draw up my own playbook in the dark. It's like, oh, I would have ran this play here if I was in controls of this and that. But when you have Andy Ludwig at the helm, this is why football is the greatest sport. There is so many people that have to be on the same page in order for things to work, right? The head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback, the GAs, the offensive line, the running backs. Everybody has to be on the same page. That's mindset, that's actions, that's communication. Everything has to be on the same page. So I think the different things that you can do here with Dijon Stanley, who came out in the first year. You understand he's got dynamic speed. Why don't you use that? Why don't you have people so afraid of your speed when you put this package in, they're just dropping back in coverage, and then you can just throw a tight end screen to Brant Keithy. I would literally put Money Parks, Dorian Singer, and Dijon Stanley in and run them on trips far, trips far, and throw a tight end screen on the backside. Have all the attention go to the speed. Run those guys, run those safeties off all through the field. There's different things you can do in all kinds of capacities. The whole problem is there was just no aggressiveness with our play calling. Everything's so bland, and from the sidelines, from a guy who isn't, at practices, who isn't watching these guys get ready for the opponent, I could tell you what our offense was doing. So imagine what TCU, Arizona State, and Arizona was doing when they were game planning for us, right? I know most of them came off of a bye week playing us, so that was a benefit to them. But you got to take that into account when you're play calling. There was just nothing. Those opponents were not scared of Utah to do anything at all. They played with their toes in the ground, toes forward, and they never backpedaled the entire game. And so I hope that the aggressiveness takes that. I mean, you got so many people. You got Landon King on this team, and he really doesn't even have a target. I don't even think he has a target on the year. He was in the system and did an amazing job last year. Where is he at? He's a 6'6" body, right? You got Damian Alford, who's another 6'6", 6'7" body. You got Caleb Lohner, who's a 6'9" body, 40-inch vertical, right? You put those three on the field, don't you think that's going to cause attention? Like, I'd put Caleb Lohner and Damian Alford right on the seams, right outside the tackles, flex Landon King in there, and another tall body in there, and you call that the Monstars unit. Literally just do a jump ball. See if some of these short DBs can catch a jump ball to Caleb Lohner. Like, why can't you do things like that? There's just absolutely nothing that we were doing these past 3 to 4 weeks where we've shown any aggressiveness. So I hope that Majakian can just understand the personnel and the people at his disposal and use them as such.
Okay, so you've explained to us the how, right? Like how you think he can make a difference. I'll just follow up with, do you believe he will? I mean, there is a path left. There really is. And taking some pushback for it. And I understand it sounds crazy based off the data we have because it's been really bad. And there's no other way to say it. 3 straight losses, 12 points per game. I could run you through the offensive metrics, but you've seen them. All of them are bottom 4 besides the rushing attack, which is 9th in the conference. None of the offensive numbers are good. None of them. So You've helped us understand what it can look like. What's your confidence level that starting on Saturday against Houston, it actually will look and feel different and better?
I mean, I'm a biased guy. I'm a Utah man until I die. I'm telling you. So I'm very hung up on what Utah should do. Right? It's that ex-girlfriend with so much potential. Right? It's I think Utah should do all of these things. What they will do, I have no idea. It literally, I have no idea why we can get up 20-something points, but be afraid to get up 30, get up 40 points. Why are we so afraid to put up numbers? And we've been like that for years. We've never been a team to even when we play some of these, and this is what surprised us so much when we played SUU a few years ago when we put 70 points on the board. Like, that's the team that we should be. We have that capability. We have a more talented roster right now than we did then. Why are we not doing things like that? Why did we not put 50, 60 points up on SUU the first game of the year? Why did we not score anything on offense in Baylor and Oklahoma State? So I'm more hung up on what we should do versus what we will do. I'm not in those coaches' meetings being able to tell them my thoughts on how a plan of attack. I don't know Mike Majakian on that, and I don't know how much control Coach Whittingham is going to allow him to do that. I know Coach Whittingham wants to establish the run so much, but I'm just like, man, we got somebody who can throw the ball. Isaac Wilson has a tremendous arm. Understand the type of offense that he's come from and why you recruited him. Isaac Wilson is not one of those, we need to huddle up every single time and have my back to the defense in the huddle, call the play in the huddle, and then go under center. That is not Isaac Wilson. And if Coach Ludwig didn't realize that, I don't know what he's doing at offensive coordinator. Isaac Wilson is the guy. You don't need to huddle. He can call the offense on the field, but he's able to see the defense right in front of him and not messing up his cerebellum by turning around so much and understanding where everybody's at and keeping everything in front of him and throwing the ball downfield. Stretching the defense out, doing all these short crossing routes gets everything so discombobulated and conjoined up in the middle. It's hard to see. But if you stretch people out, you're doing a go route here, you're doing a go route there, deep over route here. He's able to see those things easier. So for me, it's more understanding the personnel, understanding your quarterback, and understanding the receivers and the running backs that are at your disposal, and doing plays that they want to run and that they feel that they can score on every single play, man. So I have no idea what they will do. I'm just hung up on what they should do.
Well said. All right, we got to move over to the defensive side of the football. Equal time here.
Yes.
So much attention has been on the quarterbacks and the offensive coordinator. And Slide, most of the metrics are good. They're number 2 in overall defense. They're 5th in pass defense. They're 3rd in efficiency. They're 4th in the rush. Let's see. But here's where they struggle. They're 9th in sacks. They're dead last in forced fumbles. They're 14th in fumbles recovered, and they're 9th in interceptions. They're not turning the other team over, although the other metrics do indicate that there is a lot there when it comes to how good the defense can be. So just overall, where are you at with the defense? How good is the defense? And then what does that mean that the offense at least has to counterbalance to make sure this team can start stacking wins?
Yeah, man, it's so hard. Because I am hard on the defense. As a defensive player who came out of this system, I would be one of the, if I'm not their hardest critic, I would be one. I expect the most out of them, but I gotta give it to them, man. They have been playing outstanding, and those numbers are so inflated in some capacities because of the horrible situations that they're constantly put in. From our offense turning the ball over or not getting great coverage on the special teams unit, starting on the wrong foot. Our defense has played great with, Connor O'Toole being out, Corinne Reed being out, some important pieces on this defense. Alakai Gilman got suspended for, targeting 1 week. We've missed some important pieces and had to shovel some things around. I think it was Kenan Johnson, the cornerback. He got out in the very first games. There's been some shuffling. Rabbit Evans and Elijah Davis rolling into the lineup. With all these new guys shuffling pieces, our defense has played pretty darn well. I think we're top 5 in the nation in third down percentage, which is huge. That means that we're able to get off the field when we need to, or force and Reed in the defense. I'm like, yo, it's got to be you. You got to go in here and force a turnover. I remember we were at Oregon a couple years ago when we lost up there, and I was like, Corinne, you got to go force a turnover, punch that ball out. Next, he goes in, punches it out, and we get a turnover, and we're right in their end zone. And I'm like, that's what our defense has to do right now. We have to put up points because our offense isn't. And so we got to take it upon ourselves. That would be the only thing our defense isn't doing. It's hard to look at the statistics. If we had complementary offense, I could look at the statistics and take a story from that. But just knowing that we haven't gotten help from the offensive side of the ball and special teams, that those numbers are just those numbers. And to hold TCU, a 30-point team, Arizona, another 25-plus point team per game team, under those numbers, I got to tip my cap to the defense because of the situations that they have been. So Morgan Scalley's doing a great job of getting these guys ready and fighting. Even Oklahoma State, we saw what they did to BYU when they actually give Ollie Gordon the ball, and they're a dynamic team as well. And we made them look amateur, and it was great. And so it's hard to tell a story for this defense right now. I just think that they've done a great job with what they've been given thus far. They just got to finish it out, start scoring on defense, creating those turnovers, and bringing some more excitement to the field.
It's a lot of good stuff today, man. Have a great week, and we'll get you back on soon, okay?
Thanks, Spence. Appreciate you.
All right, Stevenson Sylvester. He is on social media at @SSylvester55 is where you find him. Live in studio, the dynamic duo. They're back. It's Nate Orchard, mayor of Sac Lake City. Nate, how you doing, brother?
Doing fantastic. Boy, Sly sounds good, huh?
Yeah, he
he's ready
does.
to get out there and coach.
He does. And I don't know why this sly grin is happening over here with his 7-0 BYU Cougars.
He knew what was coming.
Yeah.
He knew it.
What's up, Jake? Jake, how you doing, man? You
I'm good. How you doing?
I know you. You guys are in studio for a full segment, so we'll save it coming up.
Okay.
Advanced Window Products. Jake, let's start with you. Fall football sale.
Yeah.
What do you want our listeners to know?
Look, call today to get the windows. If you're needing your windows replaced, call today, get on the schedule, and get them before the snow flies, before the weather really turns cold, and before you start pumping out money on those heating bills. And if you call today and get on the schedule today, we're going to give you an additional $500 off the regular $2,500. So a little sense of urgency. Call, get the $3,000 off, 10 or more windows. You're going to get Rob on the other line. And we want to get you, if you want your windows before the end of the year, we have some slots available. We can get you in. Call today, even if you're not in a huge rush and you want to get them maybe in spring is what you're thinking. Call today, and you're going to lock in the pricing for this year and the 2024 pricing.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, to give them a call today at 801-850-9100. Nate, everybody has a different budget, right? And you guys will work with people with financing options, yeah?
Yeah, don't let that deter you from even just calling, right? And allowing Rob to come out to your home, let Rob do a full assessment of your windows, do an audit of your current windows, and run you through your financing options, right? We have a variety of options to fit any budget, and to be able to, allow you to transform your home and be well on your way without the stress of feeling like, hey, I can't afford these windows.
So if you need windows now, because it's about to get cold, I promise, call today at 801-850-9100 to lock in that $3,000 savings. But as Jake referenced, if you anticipate needing windows in the next couple of months, maybe you're going to move in the spring, call today to save the $3,000 by just getting on the schedule. The number is 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100. All right. Nate and Jake live in studio. We're about to get weird on a Tuesday right here on ESPN 700. What's up, boys? opening night of the NBA. My Knicks are in Boston to take on the Garden. Then it's the T-Wolves and the Lakers. Bronny and LeBron potentially on the court together, making history tonight. And to take at the storyline, hey, nepotism exists in coaching in the front office, so everybody calm down. It's just something fun to watch. Football. As the mayor of Sac Lake City is in studio, Nate Orchard, and the beast BYU secondary back in the NCAA football game, Jake Weber is also with us.
54 overall, baby.
Indeed. It's better than 0. You're in the game. All right, mayor of Sac Lake City. Currently, the University of Utah in the Big 12 is 9th in sacks, 16th in fumbles, 15th in fumbles, and 9th in interceptions. There's a lot of attention on the offense. Of course, Cameron got hurt. We have a change in coordinator. But as a guy that made a living getting the quarterback, why can't we pressure the QB? Like, it's the one area of the defense right now that the team seems to be lacking.
Yeah, I looked at the stats, and it was I think in the last 3 games we had 1 sack, right, and that was by a linebacker. Yeah, we're struggling, and I don't know what it is, right, whether it's the leadership, whether it's, the accountability amongst each other in that defensive room, but there just needs to be a wake-up call, right, and maybe Coach Ludwig stepping down was something for the team, but the guys just need to find that fire again and understand that, yeah, Utah is having a struggle offensively, but this is a defensive dominant team. And when the offense isn't holding their part, there's no reason why Utah should have scored a touchdown themselves on defense on Saturday, right? And so you just hope that they figure it out, and I don't know what that is.
Jake, we were talking about this off air because it's one thing to be bad. Every team, Kalen DeBoer is learning what it's like to be bad in Tuscaloosa. Yeah. I'm not saying that's a bad team, but they have more than 1 loss heading into November. Alabama football does for the first time since 2007.
2007.
It's an impossible standard. But based off the standard you set, your fans that have certain expectations, we now have a fan base here that has expectations based off a generation of very dominant Utah football. It's one thing to not be good. I think it's a completely different thing when preseason you're thought to be the best team in the conference, and the numbers show you at this point you might be one of the worst. That's hard to stomach.
Yeah, and you look at, like I said off air, if you were to ask people if they were taking the field or if they were taking Utah to win the Big 12, people would have said Utah. And that's what the fan base expected.
Right.
And when you come in with expectations and we're not meeting those expectations and there's stuff with Cam and you kind of wonder what's going on, you can see people quickly turn.
Yeah.
And that's where, as like for Utah, you want to keep those fans, you don't want them turning. And you ask the fans to kind of be patient with everything. And like Nate said, maybe there needs to be a little wake-up call. And with Coach Ludwig stepping down, that's what you hope. Maybe this is the wake-up call and it's able to get turned around. But the last thing you want is to see fans just quickly turning and walking away, saying, I'm putting their hands up and I'm done with this, and having the stadium half full.
Yeah, for sure. And Nate, I wanted your thoughts on that because it's juxtaposed to expectations. Like if Vegas set the over-under this year at 6 and Utah was picked to finish 9th in the Big 12, the shock factor wouldn't be there. But because we all thought this was a potential CFP team, and as Jake referenced, the favorite to win the Big 12, that changes the way the fan base expects you to play. How does that affect you as a player when things aren't going your way, when you know you're doing everything you can?
Yeah, it's tough, from the outside perspective, right? And projections are projections, and that's what, I'm sure coaches harp on. Don't listen to the media, block out that noise. Let's focus on what we can control in front of us. And for it to fall off after the hopes, of having Cam back, this is going to be it. The possibility of hosting a playoff game here type of conversation, right? And now you're sitting in a situation where you did not fathom whatsoever. To me, it's just, how do you answer that, right? How do you bounce back? And as players individually, you have to be able to lift each other up and continue to just fight and move forward and finish the season out strong, right? You got 5 games remaining. Let's go 5-0. Why not? But a lot of things ride obviously on the offensive side and what's being done there. But as far as, defense, I'm speaking defensively, just control. You can control and just go out and make plays.
So, Jake, the last 2 games, it's been Arizona. And I said the Monday after the Arizona game, I don't think I've ever felt such underlying anxiety and nervousness from a fan base in a stadium. And then I went to the TCU game, and I'm like, that's 2 games in a row where the air is taken out of a stadium that when really popping is one of the best home field advantages west of the Mississippi River. Like, what have you felt this year as you've gone to Ute football games that feel different than Ute games in the past?
The energy. There's not like the juice, and you're waiting like who's going to step up and be the guy, and who's going to make the play defensively. Like you talk about Utah, could the defense have scored? And I'm going to like flip it to BYU where like that when they beat I'm spacing what game it was, but where the defense was putting points. Kansas State.
Yeah.
The defense was putting up points.
Which
and, like,
it was every game.
Yeah, it's been every game. But like that's where Utah, like the defense, they make plays, and that's what Utah is known for. And you come into Utah, and the stadium's gonna be loud, fans will be packed, and you're gonna hit in the mouth. And it just seemed like that has not been there. And then from like the fans, you just kind of hear like the rumble. It's like quickly, everyone's amped up, ready to go. And then it can quickly turn, and then the grumblings, and kind of looking at each other like, wait, what's going on? What's going on? And that air just kind of seems to just slip out of the stadium. And you're hoping that the team wins the defense, can make a play, wins that play coming. Because at the end of the game, they're down 6, and people were walking out. Yeah. Down 6. Yep. Like a game wasn't over. A game easily could have been won. Third quarter. Yep. Game could have been won. Yep. And people are walking out as if – and for fans, you want them there. The team needs the stadium. Like that is a home field advantage. And if you don't have that, if you don't have the fans backing you, that just makes it tough as a team to finish the game, to make that play, to get in the end zone.
I was by a group that was leaving, and then Isaac hit Money Parks for the touchdown, and they were pissed they had to walk back in. They're like, oh, man, I guess I'll stay. But with such little confidence, Nate, that they were going to be able to get it done at the end. But here's my question for you. You're the player. Well, both of you. But you're the player in the locker room to help us understand. Look, Mike Bajakian spoke to the media yesterday and said the system's in place. System's the system. They didn't just hire Mike from UW to install his own system. He's simply going to utilize the system that was already in place. So if Andy Ludwig couldn't find anything out of his own system, is it realistic to expect Mike to make miracles happen when there's not a change in personnel and it's the same playbook? Like, are you confident that a new voice is needed, new eyes are needed? Because I don't know schematically what Mike is going to do that Andy couldn't do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Mike, I know Mike and Andy go way back, right? And Mike has his track record and has a lot of success at various schools and in the NFL. Really what it comes down to, I look at it from the perspective, as a player, being on a team, in meetings and locker rooms and practice where, hey, you maybe have this coach who is the OC or DC, but by golly, we got this cornerback coach or DB coach that is unbelievable. That, hey, if he were the guy, that's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe that is from Mike's case, right? Maybe there is a lot of respect for him and what he does behind the scenes and the way he motivates the players and how he communicates with his quarterbacks. And so with this, maybe Mike's going into it like, hey, let's just keep it simple. Let's not overcomplicate this thing. Football is football. Go out there and have fun. Let's simplify the offense. Let's throw these short passes. Let's work the run game when we can. But, Isaac, let's get you comfortable in the pocket on first, second down before we really start to open up, the playbook. But just keeping it very basic. And I look at it in the sense of, like, my OC as the 6-year-old flag football team of my son is like, I got 2 or 3 plays. That's it, baby. And like just that bread and butter, one run play, 2 pass plays. And they just perfect it, and it looks so good, and you think these kids are a bunch of all-stars. And that's all they need to do. You flip the play, run pass, run it on both sides. You get stuff going down the middle, and from there you're just getting momentum. And with that momentum comes confidence. I look at Arizona, right, with those 4th down situations where we couldn't convert. Those are momentum killers, not only for your team but for the people in the stadium. And so as long as you can keep momentum going each drive, you're marching down the field, you come up with 3 points, maybe a touchdown, but you're getting something, and that's where you get the trust and the confidence in your players on the sideline.
So social media is an interesting animal, and I am grateful it was not around when I was in college. Mm-hmm. It is a necessary evil as far as what I do for a living. I don't enjoy it. I'm rarely on it. I do not live online. The internet is where cowards go to feel brave. But what's interesting is it does give you a peek inside, because this generation – 24, 25 and under, they were raised with cell phones as their best friends, their babysitters, and their way of life is online. Their way of life is on social media.
Yeah.
And I didn't have my first cell phone until I was in college, like 21, 22 years old. It was a flip phone, like a Nokia, that was horrible. So I
had
didn't.
Snake on that phone though.
And I was good at Snake.
Yeah.
I could play some Snake. So I don't relate to what it's like. Like NBA coaches now talk about at halftime, the players go check their phone. That's the first thing to do at halftime. So it gives you a peek into the mind of some of these young men who Landon King sent out a post on social media. Dorian Singer, wasted talent. They're all kind of firing out on social media. Like Dorian Singer is implying that his talent is being wasted at the University of Utah based off an Instagram post he sent out. It's a silly way to do reporting, but when you don't get a lot of access to the players, the frustration is mounting. That's my point. So my question to you is, how do you keep it together? As a guy that was in the locker room, as a guy that was a leader in the locker room, 3 straight L's, everybody's coming at you. There's a little bit of dissension. It feels like Coach Wood says they're all connected. How do you keep it together as a player?
It starts with your leadership committee and really your captains, right? And those are the guys that, I mean, I was at my senior year, not to pat myself on the back, but like people looked to me for guidance.
Yeah.
They looked to see how I would respond to certain situations, whether we had to run extra gassers or it was another lift, or in a game, right, when it's crunch time. How is he going to respond? Because whatever his reaction is, that's what we're going to ride with. And so it comes down to the guys in the locker room. Now that Cam's, out of the picture, he can still be a voice, but at the same time, your play does all the talking. So those guys who are on the field playing, who are the main guys, like how are they, what's their message to the team? How are they, interacting with the guys and getting them on the same page to really finish out strong these last 5 games? And who's to say that they're fully out of the picture, right? I mean, go undefeated and make it hard for the committee and make something happen. But to me, it's just the players in the locker room. Coaches can only do so much. You look at this as if, we've obviously sped up the process of the NFL, right? You got NIL money thrown around everywhere. You guys are your own entities. You got to treat it as a business, and you're out here making business decisions. Like, what direction do we want to move as a team? How are we going to deal with this adversity? And it's just up to the players.
So we thought Utah football at this point I thought they'd be undefeated at this point of the season. Okay. I thought the schedule down the stretch posed some challenges, thought they'd be undefeated, thought they'd be borderline top 10, thought they'd be making plays on defense, thought they'd be dynamic on offense, home advantage. And it's all happening 40 miles, right? So we'll start with you and then we'll let
This is Russian by.
then we'll no. It really is like Seinfeld Bizarro World, right? They've done the switcheroo, and everything that's happening with BYU is exactly what I thought would happen with Utah. Does that make it sting a little worse?
1,000%. What talking about in church, out in the streets, at the grocery store? I can't even fill up my gas the same. You got people just looking and smirking that deep down, they're BYU fans, and obviously me being a Ute, they know what's up, and so it's hard. It's hard.
Jake, go ahead, pal. How you feeling over there?
I'm shocked. I'm going to be honest.
Okay.
I think most people thought it was going to be the opposite, like you said, but BYU would be 3-4. And it's like, hey, are they going to be able to get into a bowl game this year?
Fan base struggling with coaching.
Struggling with coaching. So expectations were lower. Like you got people like on the bandwagon, like, yeah, they're going to be great. They're going to be great. But like really, it was like they're going to be, if they can make a bowl game, good. That's a good year. Kalani's probably got another year. And you talk about with Utah set expectations, BYU expectations, and have that flipped. And BYU fans, man, you talk about social media popping off and saying stuff like this. There's excitement.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like they're the real deal. And it's amazing how quickly fan bases can turn. And people who were closet fans, all of a sudden they come out and they are in your face. But it's BYU looks great, and Kalani has done something. He's the players' coach. Yeah. There's energy. The sideline, the game, defense is making plays. Offense is making plays when they need to, and that's what you expect from Utah. And it's just to have that switched, it feels a little bit surreal. Like as you're at the Utah game, everyone is talking about the BYU game. Like is in the second quarter, third quarter, it's like, man, this season might be over, but what about the BYU game? What's BYU doing?
Yeah.
How are they doing? That game. And you start talking about that, and then it's almost like the distraction, what's happening down south, and where you can tell they're focused. They know what they're doing, and they're going to come up here to Salt Lake, and they're going to be ready to go.
And the interesting thing is, I'm old enough. Like the young Utah fans, like go vape. All right, leave us alone. I'm old enough to remember, like when Lavelle was the head coach. I think it was like 21-2 against Utah over like something like that. It was insane, and that's when I grew up. And my grandfather was a member of the Cougar Club, so we were down there all the time. If Utah kept it close, it was a miracle. Occasionally, I think it was '88 with Eddie Johnson. It was a miracle win, right? Everybody celebrated. So there's a generation of that. And then, Nate, now there really has been a generation of Ute football dominance. They got Utah last time, but okay, you got one. It's something like, what, 16-2 or something at 18 years? So what makes it sting is the fear in this community that we're going back to what it was like back then when Utah football could never – I'm not saying that's where we're at. I'm saying that's the fear as you see them do what they're doing and we're watching what's happening up here.
And without a doubt. And for me, it's hard because Kalani and Jay Hill.
I think it's
the
like,
best.
I think it's like that for everyone.
Yeah.
Every
That's my
Utah
guys.
fan is
Yeah.
like Kalani, but I love Kalani.
Yeah. And like Kalani sat in, the weight room at Highland High School to recruit me along with Jay Hill. And, those guys are the reason why I came to Utah, and to see them there, I mean, it's a bittersweet situation without a doubt. But obviously I bleed red through and through and wish for nothing but the best for them. But it's just tough.
No, you're not. You can actually see Nate on YouTube right now. He's shaking his head. He's very sad. No, if it was Bronco, I'd resign from the show. I'd be like, I'm not doing the radio thing anymore. I'm going to find something else to do. But because it's Kalani, I'm genuinely thrilled for him because how can you not like him? All right, last thing, and then we'll get to the deal. Advanced Window Products. Actually, we'll start with Jake. Nate, we'll give you the last word.
Yeah.
As of today, what do you think happens on November 9th when BYU's in town to play Utah? As of today.
There's like
Nate's hurting over here.
I think BYU's going to come in, and I think they're going to play. I think they're going to win the game.
All right.
I think it's going to be it'll be a fight, but I think BYU will win.
So the Vegas line has not been released, but you can look at some of the projections. As of now, BYU would be a favorite on the road to beat Utah. Slight one. I know where your heart is, Nate. November the 9th, BYU rolls to Salt Lake. Can you even put yourself into a situation to consider the Utah? They're going out of town, man. They don't want to go.
I might call in sick that week to work. I don't know. But, it's the numbers don't lie. You got to look at the way they're performing, the way Utah is, and I'm going to have to say BYU might run away with this one. And as much as I hate to say it,
Football's so weird, dude. None of us knew anything to start the season. All right, Advanced Window Products. Jake, you guys have a fall football special, but you're upping the ante for listeners to give you a call today. Let's hear about it.
Yeah, that's right. Call today. Just get on the schedule, and we're going to give you $3,000 off 10 or more windows. And the weather is turning. It's pretty outside right now, but a lot of homeowners, you think back to last year, the money that you spent on those energy bills to heat your house. And as you're sitting there watching the game and you have that draft, or you're looking at your windows, you put your hand up next to it and it's just freezing cold. Like, get rid of that. Let's transform your home. And call today, because that's what we're going to do. You throw new windows in there, high quality. They're all manufactured here locally with a lifetime warranty. You're buying them factory direct, so you're getting a better product for a better price with guys that are going to stand behind the product. We're both from here. Nate is the mayor of Sac Lake City. He's not going anywhere. He's not hiding. We're not going out of business. The number of window companies that they end up like pop up for 3 years, replace a bunch of windows, and then are gone. And then you got people calling us saying like, hey, I bought windows from a company that's no longer here. Can you service my windows? Like, sorry, we service our own windows, but you should have bought them from us in the first place. And most customers, they get those windows in and they're asking, why did I wait? So call today. We're going to give you $3,000 off to 10 or more windows, and we're going to have Rob out to your house in the next day or two.
$3,000 savings. And ultimately, Nate, there's probably an element that's not discussed enough, because not only do you want your house warmer so it's comfortable, if you come home from work in the winter and you put your hand on the window, it's cold, you're hemorrhaging money on gas. So ultimately, rebates, right, available, but you're saving money in the process of actually updating your windows too.
Exactly, yeah. And with those rebates from Rocky Mountain Power and Dominion Energy, that's just money back into your pocket. And, you don't notice really how much, the energy efficiency that you're losing through your windows. Those big openings in your home whether that's the lack of the quality of the game, the poor glass quality. Those things are just draining the energy out of your home, and just, your bills are just going up. And so, within a year after you get those new windows, you'll start to notice a significant savings.
So here's the deal. Call today to save $3,000. Now, you save $3,000 whether you put an order in for work immediately or you need it done later on. So if you anticipate maybe give your wife a gift for the holidays, for Christmas, you can save $3,000 on the process. Maybe you're thinking about buying or selling a home in the spring. Well, you can save $3,000 by calling today, regardless of when you need the work done. So here's the number. It's 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, boys, we'll chat in a bit. Amy Donaldson is our guest coming up next right here on ESPN 700. I took the plunge, man. I took the plunge. Told you I wasn't going to do it, but I went to Costco and I got a box of Uncrustables.
Good.
I don't know, man. I don't think this is a good thing.
Why?
I had one during the break. They're too good. It's hard to only have one. I could finish 4 or 5 of those things. So they stocked the fridge with them here at work. We cleaned those out in a couple of days. And I always thought, like, I can't buy a whole box of them because I'll be unable to stop. That's an elite snack, man. That's a tier 1 snack. A grape Uncrustable is a tier 1 snack.
It's an elite snack, and I keep a frozen box of Uncrustables in my freezer at all times. So
yeah, they have to be in the freezer. They have to be in the freezer. Tier 1 snack expert Amy Donaldson joins us now. Have you ever tried an Uncrustable?
Listen, that's a running staple. They're amazing, and you can leave them in your backpack. A week later, you can still eat them.
All right, grape or strawberry, which is better?
Oh, grape every day.
Yeah.
Grape.
No, I'm with you. Tier 1 snack, Amy. Thank you for the time on a Tuesday. All right, let's get to the release of the pod, what the reaction has been, and how the past 24 hours have gone for you.
Well, we had an amazing event. I have to say thank you to our buddy Trey Fitzgerald and to Nate Dowdle at KSL for and everybody who put together an amazing event. I had a lot of discussions with fans who've been fans a long time. It was the perfect blend. I think my husband summed it up this way. He thought it was more intellectual than he expected.
Oh, dear.
I think it was more sentimental than some people expected. And, it was just I think it was a perfect sort of event to have right before the playoffs. You know, you're feeling this anxiety, but this excitement, everything is possible, but also the end of the world is also, could happen. So it was just kind of a refocus. Jason Christ, Tony Beltran, and John Kimball were amazing. They just told some great stories. And, and then it was a chance to talk to some fans. And, the people who were there and the reasons they came, dads bringing their kids and one gentleman who was actually undergoing cancer treatment today. And that team, that game, that stadium, that's their reprieve. That's the place they go to find joy and to connect with their loved ones and have fun with their neighbors. And just a reminder of why we love the games.
I feel like the follow-up is simply, what did the Honorable Edward Brass Esquire expect prior to his arrival?
That's a good question. All I know is he said to me, I was exhausted, because it was a busy day. I was writing, and I wrote a column yesterday about, why I wanted to do the podcast and sort of what these moments in sports, the opportunities they give us for reflection in our own lives. And he said, I think it was a good thing you're tired because you weren't so overwhelming.
Well, that's such a good line. That is I'm going to use that with you from now on, by the way. That is such a good line.
People say, I like an honest, I need somebody to tell me I don't look good in an outfit. You know what I mean? He was complimentary, but when he said that, I was like, so I am overwhelming.
I think actually only your husband could get away with saying, I would never say that to you in person. All right, so I saw the piece that you wrote, and it was really good. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about, we talked about some of this last week, but for our listeners who may have missed it, first of all, tell us what the name of the pod, where people can find it, and how the piece you wrote about the moments in sports essentially motivated you to take on this project.
Yeah, so the podcast is called Making of a Moment, the RSL story. And, really it started with this idea that we would just do a story or a podcast on the 2021 playoff run, which, even a beginner like me was like, well, this is unlikely. This team's picked to finish last. Their coach leaves in August. They had this interim guy whose name, it took everyone a month to learn. So and they didn't have an owner. So I thought there was an intriguing setup there anyway. And Trey said he really pitched the idea to me because Pablo is such a unique, individual and a unique head coach. And so that was sort of the premise. But what I realized when I got in there and started doing some interviews is that it's really difficult to separate all the things people go through from the actions they're taking in the moment that you're covering. And so watching the team go on that run, which was incredible, and just it exceeded my expectations, even as a writer. But for fans, it was just such a ride, and it just reminded me. And we'd come through COVID. I think you and I talked about this with the BYU Coastal Carolina game as well. And we really were struggling with what role do sports play in our lives, right? People are dying, people are sick, people are separated from their loved ones. I talked to people who were trapped in this country and they couldn't even go home. And, a woman whose husband died in the hospital while she had to sit in the parking lot and talk to him on the phone. Just really hard things. And I'm like, what does it matter? Why do these games even matter? Why do we, lose our minds and spend all our money and dedicate so much time and energy to this? And, it was really that playoff run. And like I said, the high school games that I was able to go to, and then the BYU game, it just sort of reminded me there is this level of connection and inspiration and this break from life, but it's this moment of joy that you can experience. Even if you can't do the things the athletes are doing, you get to be a part of it. And if you show up and you're a fan, and it was just a reminder to me that, we're supposed to have fun. Life is supposed to be joyful, and it's supposed to be about connection and loving each other and lifting each other up and celebrating things. And so, yeah, it was just sort of, that's where it came from. And the more I talked to people, especially the front office people, I think there was a lot of debate in our office about whether or not it would be compelling to write about executives. But so far it has been. So I think I've gotten, some of the people who came to the party have listened to episode 1, and the fan groups are pretty excited about the rest of it. So tomorrow you can listen to episode 1 and episode 2 will be available. Episode 2 is the Dave Checketts journey. It's called "This Is the Place for Soccer," and I hope people like it, and I hope we get to do more stories like this in sports.
I wonder what your experience, because you referenced Trey initially pitching it to you because of the unique approach of Pablo. What have you learned about Pablo Mastroeni, and would you agree with the assertion that he is unique as it pertains to who he is as a person and the way he approaches his craft?
Yeah, I mean, I recognized Pablo was unique in our first interview. I've interviewed a lot of coaches over the years, and lucky for me, a lot of women's coaches, because women's coaches don't get as much attention. They're not as jaded. They're not trying to hide as much. They're definitely more open. But he might be the most open, honest, vulnerable coach. And I think that was the thing that really right away I was intrigued by, is he was willing to speculate. He was willing to dive off into philosophy. He would tell me about one of the most traumatic events of his life, shaped who he became and how he lives in the world. And, that was our first interview. And I can see why, he is a builder. He is a connector. He's a person who, because he more likely to address it and talk about it. There are not a lot of things that are going to be festering under the surface with a guy like that in the room. And he's also a really effusive. He's the kind of coach I like, wears his heart on his sleeve. When someone scores a goal or does something well, he acts like he did it. I love that kind of, Kalani Sitake, that, I just love a coach that, strains a hamstring because he's cheering so hard. And he's all of that stuff. So he's like, the passionate guy, but he's also like, he doesn't shy away from the hardest conversations. He's going to tell you why you're not playing. He's going to admit when he's wrong. And those are things that are rare in coaching, especially professional sports, because your job is on the line. And so being perfect and being, immune to everything and not feeling bad or not making mistakes, those are all things that seem like attractive qualities, but they're not, because it's not true. There's nobody that's doing that. And so the fact that he just owns it and he just brings you in and he just lets you know, and there's no question that's stupid. We might have had some disagreements about whether or not you play soccer because it's joyful or you play soccer because you're hungry to succeed. But that's the thing I really enjoyed about it, was sort of wrestling with tough questions and then coming away with a different perspective because he was honest, he was engaged, and he wasn't just trying to give me some answers and get me out of the interview room. And that's really rare. And I would say that across the board. One of the things that in the first few months I was like, I can't do this story because nobody's going to tell me the truth. Nobody's going to let me in. You know, that's what I love about high school sports. And it used to be this way in college where you could really have honest conversations about, you know, challenges and resilience and failure and success. But it's so much money is involved now that those conversations are fewer and fewer. And so to have those in the way that I did with this team for the last 3 years, including your dad. I mean, I bugged your dad at like 11 o'clock at night and wherever, and people just were so gracious. I mean, Kyle Beckerman gave me like 2.5 hours one day. You know, that's not always available to you in sports.
So I wonder, I was kind of teasing Jason because you interviewed Jason Kreis for this as well, yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So last week we had Jason on the show, and I was teasing him before I brought him on while he was listening to me before he was able to speak. I teased the RSL match, and I said with 59 points, RSL would break the single-season record set back in 2012, therefore making Pablo Mastroeni the greatest coach in RSL history. I was just teasing Jason, obviously. And
Yep.
he got the humor. But on a serious level, with somebody who sat down with both of them, do you see similarities or are they polar opposites from one another?
I would say the similarity is their care, is that these relationships in the game matter to them. And I would say that is the case for like all the main characters in this story, Tony Beltran, Kyle Beckerman, Nadim Onuaha. They're all like, there are people who play and the people around them are colleagues, they're acquaintances. They're people that help them get to where they're going. And the thing I would say Kreis and Pablo share is this idea that people are not resources. They are human beings, and they need to you need to connect with them. You need to care about them as people. And that what they do on the field is a different or an extension, I think to some degree for Jason, it's lesser important. I think they both are super competitive. The competitive edge in them sort of just, I would not want to play checkers with either one of them or pickleball. So, but their approach and the way they see, their responsibility to players varies a little bit. And then I would say Pablo is just a much more I can get him to go into philosophical discussions way much deeper, much more out into the abstract, where Jason is very much about, the relationships and building the relationships and like the tangible parts of the job and the team. And he's just, it's interesting to me how one of the aspects of episode 2 in tomorrow's, which will drop tomorrow, is that your dad chose this place because of how much support he thought it would have from the community. And what I don't think he saw, but what has happened is that the community, that was true. What your dad saw was true. And what happened, though, is that infused into the club. And I see now it remaking like the DNA of people like Jason Kreis and Tony Beltran and Kyle Beckerman, to where, it was interesting last night to see how many of them are not from here. In fact, John Kimball was the only one. He's like, with a name like Kimball, obviously I was from here, but you would not know which. I thought about that. I'm like, you wouldn't know which guys were from here, or how because they're so Utah now. They're like the team, the club, and the culture of the club, like they've influenced it, but it's influenced them. And so yeah, they have some similarities. But I would say, if you want to like talk philosophy of sport, Pablo's your man. But as far as connection and what it means to be loyal and a family member, that's where I really loved having that conversation with Jason. And frankly, conversation with Jason, and all of them were so good. We're going to publish them as bonus episodes because I think fans will really enjoy getting to know them that way.
So when Deloy decided to exit, during the process of the sale, which was never going to happen overnight, he was able to grab John Kimball and bring John over from the Jazz to kind of steady the ship over there during the ownership change. And John was kind of the first domino that fell. And then, Trey comes back. Matt Rader comes back. Jason Christ comes back. Tony Beltran was already there. But it started this kind of wave of a lot of people that were there during the foundational build to kind of oversee a rebuild in a way. I wonder what your thoughts are on that. And then before I set you loose, how you would characterize the shape of the club as we sit here today going into the postseason.
Well, I would say I think you're right. Them coming back did sort of bring back this shape. But I also think that there were people who stayed there. There were people who endured this. And it's one of the things we talked about is, I start the podcast at a moment of crisis for the club, but it wasn't the first crisis that the club had been through, and it's not going to be the last crisis that they go through. And the thing that I think is remarkable is the response that they had. The way, Tony Beltran told a story last night that he actually didn't even share with me in the podcast about, after Deloy's interview, going and sitting in a car with Elliot at a park, Elliot Fall, former GM, and just talking for an hour about, and it was so painful for the people who were in the organization at that moment. And I think what people like John Kimball and Trey and Jason Christ have given them is this confirmation that it was worth it. Like they kept that flame alive through some pretty tough times, and now they get the benefit of that. And the people who stayed and endured that. And that was one of the things that was really compelling to me. One of the reasons I really wanted to do this podcast was that most people don't know how hard these people who've never scored a goal, who've never done anything remarkably athletic on the field, like how hard they tried to protect this thing that your dad built. And some of them didn't even know your dad very well. But that's how much of a communal asset it became, that it wasn't just a thing, a business that is to be extracted from. It is a symbiotic, almost a living thing that had its own life and it was struggling, and these people kept it alive. And then absolutely the big names come back into it and bring that back. And especially John, I think, was really crucial because the way Pablo is open and vulnerable, that's the kind of executive John is. You can't be around John. You want to ask him, like, are we related? Because I feel like I need to hug you. He's just he's just not like a normal, and I would say that probably about your dad. Like, I can't imagine your dad and I having anything in common, and I feel like we're besties now. So before this started, it's just a really remarkable place. But I did get the sense when I was doing the research for this that there were people who really suffered to keep this, this dream alive, to keep this culture, vibrant. And I would say that people coming back in and buying into that and picking up, I have in episode 4, there's going to be an exchange between John Jenna, and they have an exchange where John Jenna thanks Pablo for bringing back, this hope and this fire and this this joy to the building. And I didn't really pay attention to it in the moment. I just left my mics on and we were listening to it after, and it really made me emotional because you felt in his words how much it meant to John Jenna, a guy who had stayed and endured all this, to have somebody come in and believe in what they had kept alive. And it was just a really poignant moment to me where sometimes you don't even know who saved this thing you loved, right? It may be a person you never see, a janitor. And that's what I loved about Pablo. He was like, everybody's on the team. And, Christ is the same way. He told a story last night about one of his favorite, the thing he loved most about your dad is that this huge interview, this big press conference they had, but the first thing your dad asked him was, how is your family? what's your wife's name? How many kids do you have? Like, he cared about him as a person. And I think that is a thing that sometimes we forget about athletes and coaches and everybody. They're there for our entertainment, but they're people and they have lives. And this is it takes a lot out of you, and you sacrifice a lot to do this for the community. And so heading into the playoffs, how do I think they are? I think they're in the position where they could go either way, but I have a sense that they're coming together in the right ways at the right moment, and we'll see what prevails. But I think they have the chance to do something special.
All right, Amy, hit us with the name of the pod and where people can get it, and then I'll set you loose.
Making of a Moment, the RSL story, and you can find it anywhere you like to listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. You can go to our website, makingofamomentpod.com, and I am going to be writing stories on every episode and the bonus. The bonus on Friday is Brian Dunseth, and, amazing content. We would love everybody to listen to it, and hopefully we'll get to do more of these podcasts.
Thank you, Amy. Have a good week, okay?
Thanks. Take care.
All right, let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Give them a call. Decide your own fate, because there's a merger going on in the cable world where you're about to be told what you're watching and how much you're paying for it. But get ahead of that and dial 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
Yeah, this is a good time to take advantage of fantastic offers. And, guys, here's the thing. You want to get the best price. You want to save money. This is where we are the specialists at this. We've got such fantastic offers with both Dish and Direct. And, guys, here's the thing. You want to take advantage of these offers while they're still available and make the switch. Save money, lower your bill. We've got great promotions with credits up to 2 years, prices guaranteed. And here's the thing. The new technology out there is so much better. Better DVR, more access. It'll have the ability to watch any streaming service, including all the traditional TV, and be able to get the best DVR experience that you can take with you no matter where you go. Call us up today. Let's get you upgraded. It's that simple, and you could be part of the many that have called us. It's a lot of money. It's $2,000-$3,000 a lot of times that people will save by making a call. And here's the thing: your current provider, they don't send you flashing signs that say, "Hey, we're raising your rates." It just goes up. And if you go and get set up right now, price is guaranteed. Get credits for 2 years. We can throw in the NFL Red Zone, the multi-sports pack free for a year, plus movie channels. And ask about internet too. Internet providers doing the same thing. A lot of people just got a pretty significant increase, almost closer to like 15-20% increase. And listen, there's a lot of internet providers that offer fantastic services, and some that even have a $200 gift card. Call us and see what we can do for you. 424-DISH. Get set up now. We'll throw in dinner at JCW's. It's 801-424-DISH.
All right, before we catch a break, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, live in studio. Advanced Window Products on a Tuesday. All right, Nate, let's start with you. Mayor of Sac Lake City. By the way, that's not changing anytime soon. We have a fall football special for our listeners today. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about it?
Yeah, if you've been in the market, looking for windows, or living in Saratoga Springs specifically, I know they had some crazy hailstorms, but if you're in need of windows, or the thought of replacing them, please give us a call. We are your local window manufacturer. We've been manufacturing local here for 38 years. And you call today, get on the schedule with Rob. You're going to receive $3,000 off the purchase of 10 or more windows. And that's a free audit, no pressure, no charge for Rob to come out and just do an assessment of your current windows.
Jake, I just saw on KUTV's weather app that we've had the warmest October to date. Then you look at the 10-day.
Yeah.
35 next week. 42 next week, rain and snow. So it's about to get cold. It's a good time to maybe analyze your window situation.
Yeah, I think everyone is being a little bit fooled right now by this weather. You get a little complacent, and it's going to quickly turn. And all of the flashback to last year with the cold temperatures, the cold in your house, your thermostat, the gas bill through the roof. We actually have, speaking of energy savings and gas bill being through the roof, we have a customer that will send us their Honeywell home report every month. And looking back, last November was when he had his windows replaced a year ago in October. And he sent us his report from last year in November, comparing the November after his new windows to the November before without windows. And looking at it, it was 67 hours less
Oof.
His report ran for his thermostat. The gas was running 67 hours less in November.
That's real money.
That's real money. And you think about that's over 2 hours a day that's running. And so the money that you're saving on your energy bill, it's 35 to 40% is what most homeowners experience. And then you pair that with the low monthly payment. If you want to have the financing, you can get it as low as $130 a month, but you pair the savings to the low monthly payment, and you're paying for your new windows just in the energy savings.
And the rebates as well.
The rebates. And so, look, if you are in the market, you're even thinking about it, you've experienced your home, the drafts, just call us, and we can educate you. We can help you. There's not going to be the pressure to buy. It's not like, oh, you got to buy now, and if you don't buy now, then prices are going to be tripled. Like we're not going anywhere, and you can give us a call in 6 months. But just call us today, get educated, and call Rob, and you're going to unlock $3,000 off 10 or more windows.
That's the bottom line. That's why you call today, because to everything that Jake just outlined, in addition, you get $3,000 off a purchase 10 windows or more. If you need it now, you should call right now. But if you need it, let's say you want to give your wife a Christmas present for the holidays, or maybe you're moving in the spring. Just get on the schedule, save $3,000 by calling today, this afternoon. Call right now at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, boys, we'll chat a bit. Dave Fox joins us coming up next right here on ESPN 700. extra. When did you become Dave Fox is in studio, the Silver Fox, Dave Fox. Why do you purport to be a huge EDM fan?
I have in my entire life since before EDM, the phrase was even invented. I was still into,
This
dance
music wasn't around when the 60s
No,
or
but
the
that
70s.
style.
Entire life.
What do you mean that style?
Yeah, like back in the 80s, there was a different version of this kind of.
No, there wasn't.
Yeah, there was. You just don't remember
This
it.
is brand new.
Well, that song's. You want to copy my playlist?
I
off
very
this?
much don't want anything that's on that.
Although I
song.
also have Bluey on here for when
Well,
we have
your
a granddaughter. Yeah.
So you go anywhere from EDM to Bluey.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's at least you have range, Dave.
Yeah. Bluey's good.
5 questions last night.
It was awesome.
It was a hit.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, ratings record.
Yeah, and you answered every one of them.
It would be weird if I didn't answer all of them.
That'd be funny if one of the days you just sat there and said pass.
Yeah, no, I'm good. No, that's not the
Next.
I understand the assignment, Dave. As the kids say, I stand on business. So it was a good time last night.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. I always appreciate you having me. It's always nice to get that Rodizio gift card like the College Football Roundtable gets.
Yeah, well, you know what you get that they don't? You get me in studio right here.
So wait.
They don't get that.
So they have to do it with DJ, so that's why they get the gift card?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, well, that no one's ever explained it to me like that.
I mean, you got to get something to put up with that, right?
So if I start doing hits with DJ, I'll get Rodizio.
Maybe, because I doubt he's going to be on this show.
No, that's not. There'd be a conflict of interest. I would have DJ. I love DJ. That's my guy. But
Yeah.
I just never knew that the reason they get fed is they have to deal with that BS.
Yeah, right.
All right, makes sense.
So there you go.
All right, Dave. Let's bring some of the content from last night onto the show and flip the script. And now I'm going to ask you questions.
I wasn't prepared for this. I thought we were just going to sit here and listen to EDM all for the 20 minutes.
It's Sports Talk Radio. I know you're not used to prepping, but we got to do it.
Okay.
We thought Utah football at this point would be 6-1, 7-0. We thought they'd be scratching the top 10. We thought they'd be among the leaders in the Big 12 on any defensive statistical category. We thought the offense was going to be explosive. We thought that Rice-Eccles Stadium was going to continue to be one of the best home stadium advantages in the Western United States. All of those things are happening 40 miles that way.
Yeah. Wow.
It's bizarro Seinfeld upside down world, right?
It is.
Isn't it nuts to think about it that way?
Yeah, and I remember having you on before the season and asking you which was more plausible, the Utes running the table and making it to the college football playoffs, or BYU not even being bowl eligible. And you said that you thought there's no way BYU wouldn't be bowl eligible. You were behind Kalani all the way.
But I thought they'd win 6 or 7 games.
Right. But you were not one of those that was on board with they're going to finish 14th. In fact, that's what we'd phrase it. Will they finish 14th? Mm-hmm. And so in that respect, you were right. But none of us, if there's anyone out there other than the members of the team themselves that thought they'd be 7-0 at this point, they're probably lying. But it's impressive, what they're doing. And watching that game the other night against Oklahoma State, which, by the way, how bad is that defense? I believe they're dead last in scoring defense in the Big 12. They are. They're probably got to be close to last in tackling because that team can't tackle. So that, you got to wonder at some point, boy, how is BYU even in a close game? But they still managed to win it, and that's the important thing. But it is just weird. It's upside down. I like the phrase. I think you were the one that used this yesterday. Bill was on, and you said the Big 12 now is just drunk. Because it's a mess. It's a complete mess. Yeah. Every team that was thought to be the front runner, including Oklahoma State, is struggling, and then these other teams are coming up. So it's crazy. By the way, you had in your last segment, you were talking about all the defensive deficiency of the University of Utah. Don't forget that still, in terms of scoring defense, they're still second.
No, in the league. I asked Nate about sacks because that's where they're struggling.
Right. And he's the mayor of Salt Lake City.
Most of their metrics are top 5 on defense. The ones that aren't, which is weird, is getting to the quarterback and forcing turnovers, which, by the way, they're also doing that down south.
Yeah,
they're
they
not
are
doing it here. But
BYU is third in the league.
Thank you. But here's what I want to ask you. What are you willing to say about what's still possible for Utah today? Because there are a few directions you could go. And there is one direction that sounds like this. I did it during Crosstalk today with Sean, with OC, and he summarily dismissed this possibility. And I get it because I sound like a lunatic based on what we've seen. Because what we've seen has been bad, and there's no other way to spin that from Utah. But what you have left are head-to-head against BYU, Colorado, and Iowa State. three of maybe the four best teams in the conference along with K-State. Now, you have to get all three of them. You have to get every game the rest of the way. But if you win all three of those games, you have to hope that those two teams got twice to still have something to say. That's as far-fetched of an optimistic viewpoint that you can take, or you can say, are they even going to get bowl eligible? Between those two, the chasm between those two, what are you willing to say about what's left?
Well, I'm not willing to say that they're going to go as far as you are and somehow sneak into the
I didn't say I'm willing to say that. I'm asking you what you're willing to say, because those are the two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and remember that you brought this up again. See, this is how much I listened to you yesterday, how they needed like 100 things to happen to get into the Pac-12 championship, and every one of them did. It was just unbelievable. Yep. So what I'm willing to say is they'll become bowl eligible barely, and that's about the extent of it.
So 6 wins or 7?
Yeah. What I'm willing to say is they're going to get at least to that.
Okay.
And maybe they'll get beyond it, but I'm willing to say that's the worst case scenario. They will go bowling. But doesn't this smell a little bit like BYU last year when they were 5-2 and didn't win another game? So that's I mean, every week there's more and more pressure on you. But we'll see how that develops. You think about going into play a team like Houston that's not good, and yet they beat TCU, they beat Utah, and you start that whole thing, the competition tree. But I'm willing to go to that degree. Yes, they will be bowl eligible. The idea of the amount of things that would happen to get them into the Big 12 championship game is almost borderline absurd.
Yeah, and I'm not willing to go there either.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm willing to say, though. I am willing to say that I'm not completely out on them still being really good, because I still believe they have the talent on paper that I believe they had to start the season. And I believe the coaching staff has earned the benefit of the doubt of the community, because I've seen Coach Witt turn bad starts around. So you get Connor O'Toole back, you get Karene's back, you get the defense back and healthy. We're going to get to the new OC in a moment. But they still have an O-line that, while young, is shown to be good. They've got a good RB1 in Mekhi Bernard. They have weapons on the outside. We all have questions under center because, of course we do. It hasn't been good enough. I am willing to say that I'm leaving space for them to still look like the team I thought they could be to start the year, even though the last 3 games has not been anything close to what any of us expect.
So you're saying you can still see them getting to 9-3?
I could see them getting to 8. I have a hard
Which
time.
matches last year.
I could see them getting – I think they get Houston. Dude, that BYU game is always nuts. I wouldn't be stunned just giving it to the home team.
I agree.
I can see 3 to 4 wins on the schedule the rest of the way. But that's stretching the imagination. Maybe it's just insane to me that, based off of what we all thought, we're now debating whether or not they're bowl eligible. That just doesn't seem to register in my mind. It's odd.
Well, and you hit it on the head when you said there's few coaches who are as good at getting things right than Coach Witt. But I still don't. I don't think being bowl eligible is. I mean, let's be honest. Nowadays, getting bowl eligible isn't like this incredible accomplishment.
Doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean squat because there's so many of them. But beyond that, and I'll give them 8 would be max in my opinion.
I think I would say 7. If pressed
probably
today,
7,
I would say 7.
Yeah, but they'll definitely get to 6. I'd stake anything on that.
Which is still just insane to think about.
Yeah, it is.
All right, so as we talked about last night, Coach Ludd steps down. Andy Ludwig, couple of different tenures total, calling plays as the OC. Mike Bajakian named interim coach, and we heard from Mike yesterday for the first time addressing the media, and he said, hey, the system's in place. System is the system, is what it is type thing. So what's reasonable to expect for Mike to be able to find in Andy's offense what Andy couldn't find himself?
That's the toughest part about this. Bajakian's been at a lot of different places, and I don't want to tell you exactly why he has. In some cases, you get caught up in a coaching staff that's fired, and you're caught up in that fray. His Northwestern offenses weren't incredible, by any means. But I think Andy said it best when, at least this is what Coach Whittingham said that Andy had related, is that they need a new voice. And maybe it's that simple. And maybe it's a matter of changing some tempo. If adapting to your quarterback. And Isaac, as you know, at Corner Canyon, played a lot up-tempo. Granted, that's high school, but maybe that's something he's more used to, maybe a little more, bootleg, that kind of thing. So, we'll see what he's able to do, but it's at the end of the day, it's the same players. So the bottom line is you're changing your play caller. And we see that, I'm not going to say we see that a lot, but we see that occasionally at every level of football. You see it in the NFL where, okay, it's not working with this guy.
The Jets just did it.
I didn't want to say it.
No, it's actually the same dynamic.
I was trying to avoid saying Jets.
The new play caller was also the QB coach.
Yeah.
And so Nat Hackett, who shouldn't have a job anyway,
exactly.
He didn't resign like Andy, but the Jets just did the very
But
same
it hasn't
thing.
fixed him.
Nothing's going to fix it.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't really know exactly what this is going to do. I think this is a good timing for Bajakian to come in because they're playing a team that's really not very good. And, maybe that's an opportunity to get things right. But then you got to get it turned around quickly because after a bye week, they play BYU.
Do you think that anything that happens this year will affect Kyle's decision, or do you think he's already made up his mind?
I don't think – none of us really know, but if it were me, I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to want to go out on a year like this. Now, let's finish playing it out. Let's say they don't win another game. Do you really want to go out on that?
You can't lose to Houston.
No, I'm just giving you an example of – what your mind frame is. Don't you want to go out with some level of success? Now, you can't do this forever, but that's what I feel like.
So I can't decide whether or not I believe Kyle, it would light a fire under Kyle, or it would make him go, good riddance, man. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this is what I have to deal with? Because, look, at the end of the day, I feel bad for the players, but in coaching, like, you get too much blame for losses. The players have to buy in. They have to execute. They have to play well. And the coaches have to put them in positions to succeed. But once the game starts, it's on the players. And they haven't been good enough. So, and neither of the coaches. Like, blame to me is top to bottom. And by top, I mean all the way to the top. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if having an underwhelming year like this just motivates Kyle to go, my grandkids, I like to golf, I like to ski. I am chilling, and I'll be an advisor the rest of the way, but good riddance to this. Or does it light a fire under him? I honestly don't know.
I feel like it's the latter. I think if there's anything that really, based on little comments you hear over the years from Kyle, I think two things that I suspect that drive him nuts more than what his team's going through is NIL and transfer portal. And I think we all know there are very few coaches that really love that. And that's the kind of thing. It's driven other coaches out of the game. Might have driven Nick Saban out of the game, and he had just about anything he wanted. So I think it could be more related to that. I don't know. None of us really know Kyle is well enough to understand if he's motivated more, as you said, by that fire, that inner desire to get the team right, or I don't see him as a good riddance kind of guy. I just don't. But I could be wrong.
Is it is it better or worse? So let's say this is it. Let's say this is Kyle's swan song. This is the last year he's doing the thing. Let's just say that. Let's say that for a moment. Is it better or worse for Morgan that this year has gone the way that it is, so you can thought to be the guy that gets the train back on the tracks, or with the train going in the wrong direction, losing another in-state kid, the offensive lineman from Spanish Fork, the top 2 in-state recruits are going to SC, with everything going in the wrong direction right now? Is it better or worse for expectations for Morgan next year?
Come on, I think it's obviously worse because you would personally, if you were taking a job like that, you want things to be running as smooth as possible. You want things to be at the highest level. If they would, let's say they were still undefeated and ran the table, won the Big 12 championship and went to the college football playoff and did well there. And then Whittingham said, perfect, we had a great season, I'm going to hang it up. Morgan's got to love that. Now, you're granted, there's some pressure.
Or are you Kalen DeBoer, who has lost a couple of games, and you're not Nick Saban?
I think
the guy that always takes over for the guy is under a different microscope.
I would still rather at least take a shot with a great team than have pressure of trying to resurrect a bad one.
Than be the savior that rebuilds Utah football
what if
next
he doesn't?
year. Look, if he doesn't, no matter what the current status of the team is, he's going to have a lot of pressure on him, just like Kalen does right now.
And he may not last
This
long.
isn't Tuscaloosa.
No.
But this is a fan base that's used to a certain level over the past 15 years, and they're not seeing it this year.
Yeah, I'd still rather have a full cupboard and just see what I can do with it.
I don't know, man. We'll have to see.
So you're a glass half empty guy. I'm a glass half full guy.
Well, we all know
Let's
that's
just
not
go
true.
with that.
Nice vest, dude. Thanks for stopping by.
Good to see you.
Anything else you want to say?
No, other than Madison Beer. Thanks for playing that for me, Porter. 15 seconds.
Again.
Just released a couple weeks ago. I'll have something new for you next time.
Doing too much, man. Extra, as the kids would say. But you do have the Riz. Bye, Dave. All right, let's welcome in Ryan from the Dish Professionals. Give him a call, 801-424-DISH. You can get, I've had every single football game at my fingertips. You guys can do it too. Dish has a great DVR that's massive and really, really quick. You can save a grip of money right now by calling 801-424-DISH. What's going on, Ryan?
You know, it's not just saving money on just TV, but it's also internet too. And a lot of people don't realize your internet bills on most people, your bill went up. And guys, fiber is an interesting thing because a lot of areas fiber is deregulated, which means that multiple providers can provide you the same fiber, just pay a different provider. Well, so here's the thing. It's like TV. You watch the same channels, but you just pay a different provider. Call us up. You can lower your bill, save money. There's gift card offers right now, a $200 gift card for new customers on the multi-sports pack, which includes the NFL Red Zone, free for a year, plus movie channels. Guys, this is a thing that you don't want to miss out on because it's just money in the bank. It's cash you can keep. Instead of paying the cable company or your other TV provider, call us up, make the switch, take the new customer offer out there, let us upgrade you. It's simple and easy. We'll do all the work for you. Just call us up and say, hey, this is what I have. This is what I need. We'll get you a much better price. Come out and set everything up. One remote to run your entire system. Plus, if you need help with your home theater, TV install, or anything like that, we can help you also. And if you combine that with the internet options, plus even the cell phone deals that we have right now, this promotion we have with Boost is amazing. And I can't tell you this enough. Boost actually has their own network, but they're piggybacking on the biggest network in America, which means in some especially the best service coverage in the area. So you could actually be using the same tower that you're currently using and get a brand new iPhone 16 without a trade-in and spend $30, $40 a month less. It's easy. You just got to call us. Let us save you money. 424-DISH, 801-424-DISH.
My man drove right into a cave during his hit. 801-424-DISH. Give him a call. All right, Jake Weber, Nate Orchard, live in studio, Advanced Window Products. All right, Jake, let's go to you, man. Fall football special. We just found out that it was the warmest October on record in 10 days. 37 degrees, 39 degrees. It's about to get cold. What should people know today?
If you are in the market for windows, you're thinking about windows, call today. Look, if we specialize in manufacturing, installing, and guaranteeing replacement windows and guaranteeing those windows for life. And so when you go with Advanced Windows, you can we sell, Nate says this all the time. It's not just, we don't just sell windows, but we sell peace of mind. So as a homeowner, you're able to know that it's an investment into your home, and you can sleep at night. If something ever comes up, you have a big rainstorm, who knows, something happens, a baseball goes through that window, you call one spot, and you're calling us. And we're going to come out to your house, and we take care of it. You get that lifetime warranty, and you transform not only the look, the aesthetic of your home, but as we get to the cold months you're talking about, you can transform your pocketbook, the money that you're saving on those heating bills, and you're really able to keep that comfort inside your home, cut back on the amount that your furnace is running, and just stay more comfortable as you're watching the game. Don't deal with that draft anymore. Get rid of that draft, the sound outside, the dogs barking. Change all of that, and all you have to do is just call today, and we're going to give you $3,000 off when you call today.
So you're going to save money just by getting the work done, but today you get an extra $3,000 off. Nate, people don't love pushy salesmen. They don't want to be pressured to buy. So what's the process? If there's a listener that just wants to be educated and has questions, what's the best thing for them to do?
I love that. Trust the process. Something Coach Widow has said. But with our process at Advanced Windows, right, Rob will come out to your home, do a full audit of your window, whether it's the frame or just the glass. He'll dissect everything with you, right? We love educated buyers. He'll talk about our vinyl, he'll talk about our glass and the low-E coatings on our glass and the benefits that it will have in your home. But after, you speak with Rob and you decide to go with us, we'll then have our measure tech come out about a week later, if that. And then in that process, right, we put you in the queue, we get your windows on order, it goes through our manufacturing process, and then from there the installation part happens. And with the installation itself, right, that's about a day process depending on the amount of windows that you have in your home. But in all, right, the biggest key with all of that is we're your one-stop shop. We are the factory. We build the windows, we install the windows, and we guarantee them for life. Like Jake said, again, just giving you peace of mind.
Jake, so you saved $3,000 today.
Yeah.
You're going to save on your gas bill if you get windows done. If there are listeners out there that's like, yeah, that sounds nice, but I still don't have it in my budget. How can you work with listeners like that?
Look, we've got financing options. And if you call today, Rob will come out to your house, and he's going to explain those options to you. But it's kind of high level. We've got 60-month, no interest. Or if you want to wait 12 months without paying anything, without any interest, we can do that for you. We have this array of options, but every homeowner is different. Every budget is different. And so when Rob comes to your home, he can explain all of this to you. He'll find out what you need and what is best for you, and we can figure out those payments and make it so it is affordable. And we have these, with us being the factory, that's going to save you money. With us installing the windows, that's going to save you money. We have all these ways for the homeowner to save money and the financing options to make it so it really is possible for you.
So if you need windows today, you should call as soon as possible. But as they both referenced, if you need windows sometime in the future, today's the day to call as well, because you lock in on the schedule a savings of $3,000, which is up $500 from the typical sale. So pick up the phone. You've been thinking about it for a while. Today's the day. Give them a call at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. 801-850-9100 or online at advancedwindows.com. All right, guys, good to see you. 5 o'clock hour of the show is next, right here on ESPN 700. All right, 5 o'clock hour of the program starts right now. It's time for the Drive at 5. Scott Mitchell is going to stop by. Coming up in just a little bit, the former quarterback for the University of Utah, played in the NFL. Obviously, you can hear him on our broadcast with Bill and Sly, as Utah football is going to be back at it coming up on a Saturday against Houston. That's going to be a 5 o'clock kick time. Our pregame coverage will begin at 1 o'clock. Porter's going to have you taken care of there. As of now, Utah is a 3.5-point favorite. That line has actually moved the way of the Utes one time. Opened up at 3, now it's 3.5. Over/under is 36.5, which is not good. So, of course, the biggest piece of news throughout the course of the sports news cycle here locally is Andy Ludwig stepping down. Mike Bajakian, we heard from Mike yesterday for the first time as he addressed the media as the new play caller for the University of Utah. And if you missed the comments, they're definitely worth your time. It's about 4.5 minutes. It's up on ESPN700sports.com. So definitely check that out. And, very honest, very forthcoming, because the fact of the matter is, as Mike talks about, the system is in place. Like, it is what it is. He's not an outside hire that is coming in to install a brand new offensive system. Nor would you do that in the middle of the year. That's what makes this complicated. It's a little bit different than pro football. I mean, even in the NFL, you pull a move like this, the OC can put some pressure on the front office, like, hey, we need a left tackle, or we need a better wide receiver. Go get Devonta Adams. Go make a trade. Go change the personnel. You can't do that in college football. You can shift around certain positional groups based off the depth you feel like you have at your disposal. But at this point, we know who the line is, the O-line is. We know who the RB1 is. We know what the weapons on the outside look like. And we know, at least for now, that under center is an 18-year-old who was trying to throw touchdowns against Bountiful High a year ago in Isaac Wilson, who just enrolled in April. He is still a green behind the ears regardless of who's calling his plays. And so I just think it's fair to ask and wonder, what sort of difference will this change make? Now, we had Stevenson Sylvester on the show earlier, and I thought Sly was really good about kind of explaining this through the prism of a player. And Nate Orchard also live in studio, because one of the things you hear every single time you hear a coaching change, what do you hear as far as the messaging goes? New voice, new set eyes. We just need the locker room needs a new voice. The locker room needs a fresh perspective. And I always wonder how real that is. Again, this is Andy Ludwig's offense. Mike spoke yesterday about his desire to come here to work for Andy. What can Mike Bajakian find in Andy Ludwig's offense that Andy Ludwig himself could not find? I don't know the answer. Maybe there's a lot there that I'm just not seeing. I never played college football. I can't speak to it. Maybe there's a lot that a new set of eyes and a fresh perspective can provide that I don't fully understand. Because I got to be honest, if Andy himself couldn't find answers for the offense he created for this personnel group, what's a new voice utilizing that same offensive attack going to find that Andy couldn't find? Now, he has been acting as the quarterback's coach. Isaac Wilson also spoke yesterday about committing to play at the U to play for Andy, right? And Isaac, you always forget how young he actually is until you see him with his helmet off answering questions. Man, that baby face, he's just young is all it is. And he almost looked a little bit emotional about everything that had happened. I mean, a month and a half into his first college football season, Isaac Wilson is going through a coordinator change, a coaching change. The most important coach for him is now gone. It's his second offensive coordinator, and we are 7 games into this thing. So I certainly wonder how this is affecting him, because let's face it, regardless of what you think about his talents or the good things that you've seen or the things that aren't so great so far, he's still the most important player on this team because he plays simply the most important position in all of team sports. You hear everybody say it. It's because it's true. So the main thing for me is understanding that relationship, which I'm sure is great, because, again, he's been his positional coach. But as far as just functionality and as far as just technique and as far as making sure you're executing at a high level, what's going to look different? I'm curious to see, because here's the thing. It has to look different because it's been so bad. We've gone through some of these numbers as of now in the Big 12, and hopefully this weekend it'll change. But the offensive numbers They go like this: total O, 15th out of 16 teams. 10th in passing, 9th in rushing, 14th in scoring, 14th in first downs, 15th in third down conversions, 13th in fourth down conversions, 14th in overall efficiency, 11th in the red zone. Ironically enough, they lead the conference in time of possession, which makes no sense. What it does tell you is there are plenty of extended drives, but they're not calling kill shots the way that A-Rod has been calling them down at BYU. They're not getting touchdowns in the red zone. They're settling for 3 way too much. They're also not turning the other team over. I mean, it really is the exact opposite of what Coach Witt wants his football team to do and what we've become accustomed to seeing Coach Witt's football teams actually execute. They've always been able to turn the other team over. They've always been able to create havoc plays. They've always been able to do the things that Kyle's protege and pupil, Kalani Sitake, is doing at a high level down at BYU. Turning the other team over, putting your offense in advantageous situations, having such a dominant D that even if the offense isn't necessarily elite and dominant, they do just enough to keep you in games, and then the offense does just enough to score enough points to actually win because the defense is dominant. Now, there are plenty of metrics that indicate this is still a really good defense. Like, you can lose me with some of the conversations going on about the D not being as dominant as it once was, and maybe that's true, but I still think on paper the talent's there, and we know the coaches are in place up there that know how to coach defenses. That's who Coach Witt is. That's who Morgan is. That's who these guys are. It's who they always have been. And we've seen them turn around slow starts before. I know I sound insane while continuing to grip to the very last branch before I fall on the ground with this team, but there's too much talent, and there's a reason why everybody under the sun, not just your home of the Utes, were picking Utah to win the Big 12. If it wasn't Utah, it was OK State, who, coincidentally enough, has also been incredibly disappointing. And if it wasn't OK State or Utah, it was K-State, who's the last of, like, the big three standing with a chance to win this thing. K-State, according to ESPN's FPI, actually has the second best chance to win the Big 12 behind Iowa State. BYU is third as of now, interestingly enough. This game for Brigham Young coming up on Saturday feels a little bit like one you got to keep your eye on. They're traveling 2 time zones. They're going to be in Orlando to play UCF. They're a slight 2-point favorite as of now. UCF should have beat Iowa State. They ran all over them. They finally found a quarterback. It took them 7 games, but they made that announcement today. And ultimately, BYU's been so good against the spread. I'm not telling you what to do with your cash outside of just don't bet on sports, which is my advice every day. But two time zones against a team on offense that kind of figured it out a little bit. UCF, BYU this weekend, I'd be a little bit nervous if I was a Y fan, because ultimately, while BYU has answered every question thrown at them, and they've won games in a myriad of different ways, I still am curious as to what it looks like when there's simply no crazy randomness to a game for BYU. Like, the bounces are even. There isn't a crazy turnover. There isn't a crazy scoop and score pick six, 138-yard Parker Kingston punt return. Between the 20s, everything is even, and go head-to-head against a really good team. I wonder what that looks like, only because we haven't seen it. They are firmly in the mix to win this Big 12 championship, and there's no debating that. But they're utilizing the formula that Coach Witt wants his team to utilize to win games. So, again, the defensive metrics indicate this is still a really solid D. Second in total defense, 4th in rushing, 5th in passing, 3rd in efficiency. But where they fall short are the areas where we're usually seeing dominance, which is sacks, they're 9th. Turnovers forced, last. Fumbles forced, 14th. Interceptions, 9th. So, yes, they're solid in basic fundamental defensive football. They're not creating game-changing plays like we've seen from Utah defenses in the past. And certainly a Coach Witt, Morgan Scalley-type defense seems to always have the one dude that makes not just big plays, but game-changing plays on defense, whether it's Devin Lloyd or Clark Phillips or way back in the day, Eric Weddle. Who is that player this year? Has that player been hurt? It looked like it was going to be Connor O'Toole for a minute. They need him back. And yes, I know you guys are sick of talking about the injuries. And yes, you should have better depth in order to absorb no matter how many injuries you have. Last year probably being an exception because it was just chaos left and right. But it can't be a massive fall off losing a couple of key pieces. Like every program across the country is going to run into it. So it's fair to ask whether or not the depth is there the way we thought it was, if it's going to look this bad when some of your key pieces aren't available. And then finally, what does the conversation sound like if after all the messaging from the football program, all the messaging from folks up there, like, okay, fresh eyes, new perspective, new voice in the locker room, new play caller, we're pumped for what this does. If they go to Houston and lay an egg and it looks the same and they can't move the football and Isaac's struggling with his reads and there's no discernible difference in the play calling, what's next? Like what's the next step? At some point, do you ask questions about who's under center? And I haven't put much of this on Isaac because, again, 18 years old, trying to ball out against Skyridge a year ago. Now you're asked to play against big boy Big 12 football. It was a really unfair ask right out of the gates. That's why I thought they go get Sam Heward. All right, a vet at one point, a top 5 recruit in his class. Brandon Rose has been in the program. What does it look like if Cam goes down? Maybe Brandon's ready. And we were all somewhat stunned, I think outside of Riley Jensen, who deserves credit for this, that they go with the kid. And I do think, this is very much an in-the-moment job. It's an intimate, connection to a fan base right now with what's going on in the moment to talk about what's current. So you might roll your eyes a little bit when I say in 4, 5, 6 years, I'm really curious to find out what an 18-year-old learned through this chaos so young in his career. Most great players in their 20s, 30s, whatever, they go on to play pro football, you can trace a career path back to some sort of adversity as a youngster. And we'll see what Isaac's made of. I mean, this is a lot of adversity for a young player who is going around the merry-go-round of college football for the very first time. But Utah football back at it, coming up against Houston. Pregame coverage for us at 1 o'clock, and then kick will be at 5. All right, before we catch a break, I want to tell you about my friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action with over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings. Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. Here's why I like Prize Picks. It's actually a format where you can win a little bit of money without betting on teams because all you do is pick more or less on player stat projections. And if you know anything about the players that they have on the app available to pick, it's not that hard to identify some holes. And with opening night for the NBA, they're giving you a free square, which is Anthony Edwards, 1 point. My guess is Ant's going to get a bucket tonight. So you get a free square tonight. Then you only have to hit on one other, and then you put a little cash down. You actually win real money. So I would recommend it. And they're giving you free money right now. So all you have to do is download the app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks run. All right, I know it's football season. I know we're all waiting for Thursday for the NFL and then the college football weekend ahead. But it is opening night in pro basketball. One game in each conference, as is the tradition. Knicks, Celtics going on right now at TD Garden. T-Wolves, Lakers, late night. So get used to the LeBron, Bronny James storyline. That will reverberate throughout pro basketball all year long. On a scale of 1 to whatever, how relevant do you feel like the Knicks are going to be? Do you have any sort of faith in Knick basketball this year?
I think there's very few situations where they're not good, right? The roster they have, they're obviously going to be competitive. But my thoughts with the Knicks are similar to last year. I think they'll be a little bit better on the top end, but I just wonder what they look like end of the year. Tom Thibodeau, of course, is a guy who loves to play his guys heavy minutes. I think this is a team that is well positioned for a home playoff matchup, and if they can get there healthy is my real main question.
Jazz get rolling tomorrow. Isaiah Collier and Johnny Juzang are both out. Load management, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
No, not with those.
Draft positioning, maybe?
Not with those two.
Not yet.
Joel Embiid is going to miss the first week. Paul George out for the opener. I said this at the time when I heard all this noise. Cam gets paid. He needs to play. Well, wait till NBA basketball rolls around. At least Cameron's hurt. A lot of these guys just decided to sit out, which unfortunately I think is an issue. I think it's a big issue for pro basketball. They would tell you it's not because of their TV money, and that's fine. But the NBA is back. I was on our old producer, John Paul, on his podcast today. It's called Roundball Roundup. That's available on the Utah Jazz Podcast Network. JP is going to be in studio coming up on Thursday. Now, we are out and about tomorrow. We are at the Dish Professionals at 8034 South State Street. So come on by and say hi. On a Wednesday show, Porter, what can our listeners expect?
On a Wednesday edition of the program, Spence, you mentioned it, the NBA is back. So is the NBA Daily Assist. We're chatting with Zach Harper on the program on a Wednesday, as well as Richard Smitty Smith on the first day of Jazz basketball of 2024, at least this season. Neil Smith stops by to talk some hockey. And, of course, we'll talk some Utes as well. Mark Harlan, the athletic director at the University of Utah, stops by.
Oh, wow. This time frame for his football team, so stay tuned for that on a Wednesday show. We'll say goodnight. Special thank you to Scott Mitchell, Stevenson, Sylvester, Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, and Dave Fox for any of the sound you may have missed. Website, ESPN700sports.com. Download our app, our mobile app, which is the ESPN 700 app, and that's available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then check out our podcast page for everything we do in the afternoons. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. That's available wherever you get your shows. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Enjoy some NBA hoops. The Kyle Whittingham Coaches Show is next right here on ESPN 700.